Blogs. Welcome back. With me to help navigate all of this is the lovely Karen Dodd. Hello, Karen. How are you?
Hello, Richard. I'm fine because it's hot and sunny, so I'm very happy.
It is hot and sunny, isn't it?
But it's still a bit stripy up there, isn't it?
Well, they're out there mowing the sky with their
noughts and crosses,
their chemical trails. I got told off for calling it chemtrails, so I'm now calling it chemical trails.
Who told you off for chemtrails?
Well, one of my guests, of course.
Why? But they are chemtrails, aren't they?
Well, they are, but they want to call them
chemical. Geoengineering.
Well, geoengineering or climate
things.
Climate engineering. It doesn't. Anyway, it doesn't really matter.
No.
Anyway, this is the Lawful Remedy. This is, remember, not legal advice, so take this with a pinch of salt. And but it is very good advice. I would advise you to listen carefully. And I should warn you, it's been a long day, and we might be in a somewhat frivolous mood. But this is, remember, not legal. Oh, hello. Getting a bit of feedback there. So, Karen, we have a delightful panel for you today. Would you like to introduce us to the panel?
I'd love to. We've got a new person, lovely Trina from Wales. I can't really do Welsh accents, and I should probably illegal, isn't it?
Welsh accents.
Well, to do any accents, isn't it? I like doing accents, but anyway, Trina, you haven't got an accent either, have you?
I don't.
And you don't. I mean, like a Welsh accent. You've got we've all got an accent, haven't we? I suppose.
Yes.
You haven't got a Welsh accent. And Trina, bless you, you gave me a thing to read out, which I haven't got with me. So maybe doing a Richard, we're all forgetting our things. But I know you know what you're all about, Trina. So
trust,
Trina, yes.
Didn't it? You do trust, Trina.
Yes.
I do. Yes. I'm a professional will writer and will trust writer drafter, and I also do a course in the private for people that want to draft their own lifetime trusts.
Brilliant stuff. Well, that would be very interesting. I mean, I've got a lot of buttons in front of me to press. I've got three kids in their teens, and there was a solicitor that's been in Worthing, where I live, for I don't know, since the 1900s, and they've just shut down.
Oh.
And I was thinking, I've been umming and ahhing about having a will drawn up for a while, but I kept thinking they're really old, but they're really trustworthy. And what happens when you've done a will and they all die, or they collapse, or the business folds? What happens to those wills? Do they get passed on to some third company or something?
Yeah, normally the businesses are sold on and somebody else picks it up. But you can get the cases where if they appointed themselves as executors, you've then got to get them off of the will. So it means you're just redrafting. You're having to create it again. So it's always best, I believe, in my opinion, to have executors that that are preferably family or close friends, and that you can trust.
Oh, that is interesting, because I was the executor of my father's will. We had to. I mean, it was kept at a solicitor's office, and then we had to get it back, and there was a little bit of tension getting that back.
But from the solicitor?
From the solicitor,
Well, they want to hold on to it, don't they? They want to, because I did my father's will when he passed. I was the executor. Thank you. And I took it through probate, and I did it very quickly, actually, because people say it takes months, but it's only because it sits on the solicitor's desks for months. I was amazed. I went through it very, very quickly, but I did have help from my dad. He'd like to help set it up beforehand, and I would always advise anybody on wills, for sure, because it's not that complicated, really, if it's written down. And you don't have to leave it with the solicitor or the bank. You can keep it in your own, your own presence, and have copies scattered around. What
would you say, Trina, to the plethora now of online will writing services that you can do?
Oh, absolutely. Something is better than nothing. Dying intestate is not particularly good.
That sounds painful.
Yes. It's not a nice place to be.
Dying intestate.
Don't go to intestate.
Well, it can also lead to disputes in the family and the wishes of the testator not being carried out. Property going to people that you don't want it to go to. So having something is better than having nothing. But then if you can have somebody that can help you plan, which makes it more inheritance tax efficient. This isn't avoidance, this is efficiency. And, just basically plan your whole estate so that your loved ones get more than what they would if you left it to the state to deal with.
Right, gosh, yeah. Well, that's
is it also true that if you don't have a will that the government can take, claim to your belongings, or will it have to be dished out to somebody?
Yeah, no, well, the way it works is if there's no will, then it will go to spouse, children. If there's no spouse or children, then it goes to parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, anybody that may have a bloodline claim or some claim of being related. And then if they can't find anybody, it sits on a bona vacantia list. Now, that bona vacantia list is publicly accessible, and you'll probably find that there's some people from genealogy or people that can actually trace relatives. What they will do is they'll find property that's sitting on the bona vacantia list. They'll trace a relative and they'll say, oh, look, you may be entitled to this. I can help you with it if you give me 20%. So, you know, it could be that it goes to a distant relative that you've not spoken to forever. But if it does sit on that bona vacantia list for 7 years, guess what? It goes to the Crown. So if you don't want it to go to the Crown, just set up a will, however you do it.
Thank you. Thank you. So lovely. That's lovely, Trina. And then we have the lovely Gary Stills, who has been on our show before.
Hello, Gary.
Wonderful. Hello, Gary. How are you?
Good evening. Yeah, not too bad. It's I've just been enjoying a bit of the weather today more than anything else, and catching up on some of my reading for my for teaching my subjects. So I've been doing a lot with the medical side, and what can I say? Looking a lot as well at metaphysics over the last couple of weeks as well.
Wow. So have you been sitting out in the garden enjoying the reading in the sunshine?
And no, I've mainly been sat inside because I just leave the front door open and just let it flood in because luckily I'm south facing, so I get the sun all day.
Oh, fantastic! When the sun is out,
when they let us
when
they turn it on.
Yeah, when it's out. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's brilliant.
We might also be joined by Gary Fraun, but he's been held up somewhere or other. So he might appear later on because I know you guys are always so busy, you know, doing things for workshops and courses and stuff. So there he is.
No,
is
that Fiona?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, that's my mistake. Sorry.
Oh, is that another version of you?
Yes. I was saying, oh, Fiona, join us. I didn't realise it's live streaming on YouTube. I thought it was a Zoom call. So I've given Fiona the link. So maybe I'll give her the YouTube link instead.
Yes.
Is Fiona a knowledgeable lady? Is she a clever clocks?
She works with me.
Okay.
I can depart and come on.
Hello, Fiona.
Hello.
You're there now.
Hello,
You're now live.
Yes, wave to everybody.
Can we ask you lots of technical questions?
Absolutely.
Will you answer them? That's the question, though.
Well, there we go. That is live. Well, I can't say live TV because it's not technically TV,
live
but
YouTube.
It's live YouTube. There we are.
YouTube. I love it.
It's all good fun.
Yeah, I love it. It's the way it is, isn't it? The way the world is, as it happens.
So we may well have Gary Fraun, who I've interviewed, and just to give a bit of a plug, on the 26th of May, the AV Alternative View exhibition or something or other. I'm in it. I'm doing it on the 26th. But Gary, hopefully he'll get me out of a hole there.
Oh, because
it's in Milton Keynes.
Because that's when we've got our...
Oh, is that when yours on
yes,
as well?
The first roadshow.
That's why I couldn't do it.
That's why you couldn't do it, because you're doing something else very useful to society.
Show everybody that then.
So we've got is that how it works? So Eli has organised this one. I don't know if the microphone's in the way, but this is on the 26th of May at the Assembly Rooms in Glastonbury. And our panel, so Richard can't come, so that's true because you're somewhere else, but we'll have Pete the Hat, we'll have Dean of Buxton, Martin Geddes and David, the People's Lawyer, and I will be hosting. And to get tickets, if you go onto the website, which is the Great Somerset Gathering, there'll be a method to get tickets there. Or for any of these, and I'll show you the other ones in a second, you can just email me at kizzy63@pm.me. So KIZZI63@pm.me, protonmail.me. And the tickets for Glastonbury, it's £20 in advance or £25 on the door. And for the other events, we've got 3 other events, it's £20 on the door or £18 in advance. Again, if you email me, I can give you the details. So after the 26th of May, we have the next one at Hope in East Sussex. I don't know if you can see that. Don't you can see that?
Yeah, sorry, I should have the graphics to put up, which would have been very clever of me.
Next time.
I've got the graphics on my phone and I can't transfer them terribly easily to the
I know,
thing.
it's all this technical stuff, isn't
But
it?
what I will do is I will put all of those in the community tab on my channel so people can see
They
them.
can see it that way.
And what we need is a list
We've got
in
that.
text.
Oh, we have got that on this. I mean, yes.
Yeah, I can type it out.
So,
then we can put that in the description.
Yes.
After the
after
event.
this, I can send that to you.
Brilliant.
So shall I just go through the other ones?
Yeah,
whilst
no,
we're
do.
at it?
Why
so
not?
The next one is at Hope Sussex. That's on the 9th of June. And Jill will be hosting that, Jill from the Freedom Network. And our clever clogs for that day will be David Edelman again, Gary Fraun, who might come on later this evening, Tony Rose and Chris Coverdale. So they've all been on the show. And again, these events are from 10 till 4. There's teas and coffees, there's no lunch. So I suggest to get the best out of the day, bring a packed lunch. Bring some sandwiches or whiz out. So we'll just have a short lunch break so we can get more questions done. And then the next one is in Buxton, and that is on the 23rd of June.
I can make that one.
You can, and I'll be there. We'll be there together. That'll be fun.
Fantastic.
And the lovely Julia will no doubt be there.
Yes, of course.
Superb. So we'll have fun there. And we've got some amazing speakers again. So we've got Kelly Spell, David Edelman. Wow, he does get about, doesn't he?
He does.
Sovereign Pete and Dean from Buxton. So, and the venue for that will be disclosed nearer the time. And then the last one we've organised at the moment is in July in Hull. And that's the 21st of July. Again, the actual venue will be disclosed near the time. So there we will have Sovereign Pete, Pete Wilson, Gary Stills, who is with us tonight, and allegedly Dave. So they're the 4 we've got up and running so far, and more will possibly follow. Let's see how these go.
Absolutely. Well, they do seem to be going down very well
Yeah.
on the live show, and we get lots of views and what have you, and we're very grateful for that. And of course, we have to thank the audience for that, for coming along with all their questions, which is really what it's all about. So let's start off with a question I've got here from Stacey Hart, which was in the chat just now. Julia, by the way, I should mention Julia's just off camera. She is scrutinising the chat in case we miss any chats.
Yes.
And there is her hand.
Oh.
Ready to smack me in the face if I get it all wrong. So Stacey Hart says, yeah, thanks for that. She says, don't you think it's time people were now called to act collectively to stop paying council tax on the same day? Cancel all energy direct debits same month where possible. In other words, a sort of unity en masse, everybody agreeing to do it to make a statement, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, that'll still be done on an individual basis when they come to deal with the consequence of it. So regardless if they do it all as one group, they have to do it vocally rather than just by paper. So it's all right to actually say, saying, individually, I'm not doing this, and there's like 100 or 200 of you doing that. But like I say, they're still going to deal with you on an individual basis.
Yes,
so you have to. So like I say, so it's better to do it vocally than as a group, and get you all basically signed on there to say, yes, we all agree that we are not going to do this because of X, Y, and Z, and this is basically our conditions and terms to the council. So do it if you're going to do it as a group, do it as a group.
Yeah.
So how
can I jump in on that as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, only because I have a lot of people who come to me who have said, oh, the council are about to put a charge against the legal title of my property. What can I do? Can I get it into trust? And at that point, it's too late. So, if you're going to be doing any challenges, you need to make sure that you protected your assets first. So ultimately, you want to get them out of your ownership, hidden away, put into a trust. You still need to have that trust declaration in place so that you still have the right of use. You don't want to lose your interest in the property. So, do that. And then I'm a fan of Chris Coverdale's approach, where he comes to say, we'll put it into trust. We're not going to stop paying. We're going to put it into trust. However, I would tweak it and say, it's going to be a revocable trust. Eventually, you could take it out, if it gets to the point where you feel you're safe to. But don't stop it after a year. Keep it going. Just keep adding it in, because the council aren't going to try and put a charge against property until it reaches about £5,000, when it's in their interest to do it. So, keep it going, because then you can always dial back. If it gets too much, you're in court. And I know these are fake courts, but you're in court and it's like, oh, I really don't want this charge against my legal title. I'm just going to pay it, and then I'll approach it in a different way. You've got the money. You haven't got to try and find it, or several £1,000s from nowhere.
You saved it. Yeah,
very sensible.
Well, we like little rants. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Hopefully get a few more little rants.
So there we go. Yeah, no, that's a very interesting thing. When a bit later on, we'll get you to talk about how people can go about putting together a trust or how they go and do that, because that would be very interesting. But as you say, do it before you've picked your fight.
Yeah, protect your assets definitely before you take, you go to war, as you would do. Wouldn't you be prepared?
Yeah.
Really.
This is why I always recommend actually reading The Art of War, because it'll give you a lot of strategies in that sense.
Yeah.
So I would say, literally read The Art of War if you can, and just read it, chapter by chapter, rather than trying to read the whole thing, and actually practice them, because the more you practice the strategies, the more they just become second nature. And
The Art of War, the book, is that sort of philosophy? It's not. It's not
It's not just philosophy. No, it's actually based from a philosophical standpoint, but because you're dealing with the kind of fundamental questions that people would ask within society or individually. Basically, the Art of War actually looks at the strategies that came from that, the underlying. What the underlying kind of attribute that led towards a solution in the end when they actually fought against certain battles or certain adversaries. So it's the wisdoms that were learned. So it is philosophy, but it is more strategic in its philosophy.
No, I suppose what I was getting at, it's not about technical warfare with tanks and guns and what guns to use.
No. It's in the sense of warfare, it tells you how to actually divide your energies. So it's a case of it's a case of one of the famous ones is, if your enemy knows where you are, don't be there.
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying. So it's about, but it's one of those about
again.
If they know, but there's an inner secret there, because the inner secret is, if your enemy knows where you are, you make sure you're just outside of there. They funnel in, and then you pincer move them.
Right.
That's the point. That's what I'm saying.
I see. Yeah.
I'm saying so.
People.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So you tell them where you are. Exactly. You tell them where you are.
Going back to this first question then, and your response, which I think was the right response, or a good response, if we do it individually, that's an individual case between me and the council. How would you suggest that we all did come together? Having read The Art of War, I have got the book, but I haven't read it, I must say. But I'm like that. I love books, but I don't always get to read them. I take them on holiday with me, but I never read them.
Essentially, it comes down to like the death of a thousand cuts, essentially. That you actually, for every signature, it's a new slice. So basically, you get all of these people on one document saying, we are not going to pay X for X, Y, Z. Our terms and conditions based on why we're not doing this, and what we're going to give to you as terms and conditions, which you've got to fulfill, just like you would on a trust, or on basically an opportunity to cure. You put in the condition, and then you get everybody, like a dominion, to sign it.
Yeah.
Literally,
dominions.
And all you need is 100 people to create a dominion. So,
well, I mean, maybe when we do these road shows, this is, we might be able to start getting this in situ in place, mightn't we? If we have a document and we have everybody sign, because if you're going to be in Hull or Buxton or in East Sussex, Netherfield, perhaps it
maybe
could be
setting up a whole load of dominions as you go with the road show.
Yeah,
this has been done before, you see, because it's like, I know Michael Albanese, when he actually did his treaty with the UN under the Universal Community Trust, he had 100 people that signed that, and basically the UN accepted it, so they've got their own jurisdiction now. So and that was only 100 people. But if you get them all to agree, that's what I'm saying. That's different, because you've got political sovereignty then, and that's what gives you political sovereignty. The more people you've got stood behind you, the more political sovereignty you have, and the more they'll listen to you as well, because they see you as having the principles that they would have themselves. So they have to listen to you because you're coming with the people behind you. And like we said before, it's only by the consent of the governed that these people have any authority anywhere.
Yeah.
So if I have that consent from the people, which are the governed, I get political sovereignty, so they have to listen.
It's a numbers game, isn't it?
Exactly.
Always has been. Can I just say here, because we've got Ice Maiden here, says about the council tax, how to prevent people being hounded for not paying. So, what would you say to that?
What?
Yeah. So, how would you prevent council tax? How to prevent being hounded for not paying?
Well, I mean, presumably you are going to be hounded. That's
Well,
a
you
matter
are,
of
that's
course,
right, of
because you're
course.
not paying something which they feel that
that you have to pay.
You have to pay.
Can you stop them hounding you? You probably can't. You have to just keep sending them notice. Well, I'm just putting the question.
Hold your position. Don't open your door. You know, the whole point of being sovereign is about getting a backbone and just ignoring not ignoring, but just don't open the door. If you give them access, then that is a problem.
Mm.
Well, I said there's also many ways you can actually protect your property as well, putting a denial of implied right of access, so they can see it, so it's actually displayed. Because like I saying, if you start putting that in, but even before you get to that, as soon as they send you a bill, just start the dialogue with them. Just actually send a notice into them to say, essentially, what basically obligation have I got to pay this? How has this debt become due? Past due, or how is it new? How is it that basically also from the Bill of Rights, how is it essentially that you can impose your will over me when nobody has that right to do it over anybody but themselves? So like I say, so you start the dialogue with them. And like I say, instead of just basically, getting to that point where I'm going to basically ignore it, because I know it's not right. And you are right in that position to think that. But that's like Trina saying, that's the mindset you keep. But in the first instance, I would always start the dialogue with them. Literally, just start the dialogue, start sending notices in, and like I said, they might ignore it because they have with me. It's like now because I've been conversing with them for nearly close to 2 years now with the council. They ignore me now. It's like the bailiffs now ignore me, and they're basically. But the thing is, because of that though, which is where the interesting thing comes in, they always trip themselves up because now I have the bailiffs on 2 false statements. So if they do take me to court, they're going to be in a lot of trouble anyway, because firstly, they've said they've been when they haven't been, and then they sent me a letter to say that I was ignoring them. I was like, I'm sorry, but every time you've actually got in touch with me, I've sent you a notice, or I've sent you an email, or I've sent you a text, depending on how you've got in touch with me, I've got back in touch with you, saying, until I have these documents in my possession, literally go swivel.
Literally go swivel.
I've actually said to her,
I've actually.
Well, the actual word they used was sex and travel.
Sex and travel.
Sex and travel.
Yeah, so
Gary's right. They do lie. They try all sorts. And, there's been occasions, there's videos I've seen when bailiffs have said it's a criminal act to obstruct a bailiff. Now, that's a downright lie, because it's only a criminal act if it's a court-appointed bailiff. And it's only going to be court-appointed if it's related to a criminal act. So, but they will try every trick in the book because they do not have any powers. They're just like Joe Bloggs coming in off the street wanting to get into your house, and that's the way you treat them.
So is there any truth in the fact that they can only make 3 visitations to your house to, serve whatever crap they want to serve?
Only if they've made an appointment first. They've got to make appointments first. They can't just show up.
Oh, see, well,
that's what I'm saying. So,
like making an appointment. Would you like to make an appointment? So I'm very busy this week. In fact, I'm very busy this life.
No, it's a simple fact of. They send you a notice to say in the next 14 days we're going to visit. Then you actually say to them, you have to make an appointment.
Right.
Simple as. You've got to make an appointment, and then you can basically, once you've got the appointment, you can gather all the other people together to stand as a.
But why? But if they can't come, if you haven't made an appointment, then you could just say, "Well, I'm sorry, I can't make an appointment. My diary is incredibly busy. Could you come back in 10 years' time when I've moved?"
Well, on the reasonable side, they won't take reasonability into any sense of consideration at all. So they'll just say in the next 14 days. But you can say to them, "I need an appointment time then." Because basically, I might be at work, so I'm not having you come to my house when I'm not there.
You can also add to that, you fire a DSAR onto them. Where did you get my details from? I've not actually given you any permission to process my information. And so then when you find out it's come from the council, you can then put in a complaint to the council for the sharing unlawfully of your details, because they don't have permission to give them out to bailiffs, etc. So, you're going to try and keep them on the off.
Yes. And that would be the same for ULEZ or any of these other things where they've shared the information.
Which they're not allowed to do.
Well, I will say something though, basically, when it comes down to bailiffs, which I found out, which was quite interesting, because I actually complained to them, to the FCA. And the FCA said they're not actually regulated for the Financial Conduct Authority, so essentially they shouldn't be doing business in England anyway. Because they're not regulated. I've actually basically got
is that against the? Is that a criminal offence?
Well, it's not a criminal offence, but it's a case of because they're unregulated.
Yes.
They're unregulated debt collectors, so every act that they're committing is a criminal act because they're
Yes.
not their financial conduct and they basically and their
But I
and their
suppose
So it could be
behaviour.
like you and me. Yeah.
No, well, because they're actually harassing people, they're actually
Yeah.
creating basically
Right. So
like
in
this modern
theory,
slavery act and all this because you're not given a choice
Yeah.
at
yeah.
all.
So if it's a criminal act, it's a criminal thing, then the police should be able to come in and stop them.
Yeah, well, that's what they say, but because they're contracted to the council, which they say they're not contracted, which they are, but that's where the DSAR comes in because they're contracted to them, they're seen as third parties, and third party can have access.
It's a murky game, isn't it? It's very murky.
That's
like
the
a
only.
loophole to me.
Yeah, they do this at schools. You see, they do the same thing. Basically, in schools, it's like I'll go to an agency. They'll have all my vetting details, including DBS, all my proofs, everything. But because they're contracted with certain colleges and schools that I go and work in, they pass my details to them because they're a third party that get access to it. And it's the same what the council are doing with the bailiffs.
Mm.
This is why they're not regulated. You see, they're under the Local Government and Finance Act essentially because they're contracted to them.
Would it be of any advantage to us fighting this if they are regulated, or would that make it harder?
Well, if it was
regulated,
if it was regulated, you'd have a lot more basis because the simple fact is the FCA could get involved with it and start an investigation on them, which then puts a cease to all their actual action. Literally put it straight away.
FCA, did you say?
Yeah,
FCA.
the Financial Conduct Authority,
And
which regulates all actual basically companies that deal with finance, and debt and stuff like this.
Is that independent from the government?
I wouldn't say it was independent, but because
I'm just thinking anything that's
yeah.
connected to the government, would it be in their favour?
I would
That's
not
all I'm
say-
thinking.
No, well, even the oversight of government isn't independent, so
No, yeah.
so there's no sense.
It's a double-edged
independent.
sword, really.
Well, yeah, but it still gives you an access, and basically because they can see you're serious, they tend to step a couple of steps back and go, well, hang about, this person's basically not only knows what they're talking about, but they're taking the right actions for us basically to keep us at bay. And like I say, that's what you've got to do. You just got to keep battling it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay, let's thank you for
Question?
that. That's very interesting stuff.
Question?
Yes.
Yeah, it might be the same one that Julia's given you. So
Okay.
from Stacey,
Yes.
she said, I thought it was said even mortgage free, we never own our property. So if you don't, if you're mortgage free, so if your property's unencumbered, you still don't own it. Is that true or not?
When you say unencumbered, what does
Like
that mean?
there's no debt on it. So when you're mortgage free, so you haven't got a mortgage on your property.
So when you finish paying for it?
Yes, when you finish paying for
mortgage-free.
it. Yes.
Yes.
So you haven't got a mortgage on it. There's no
But
debt.
you don't own your property.
Yeah. Is it true that you don't own? Yeah.
It's
Do we ever own our
it comes down
property?
to title and deed.
Yeah,
Really,
it's not really true. No, it's not. So there's two titles on every property. So you've got your legal title, which is the fictional representation of the property in the legal realm. And that has its benefits, it means you've got that registered with the land registry. It means that you've got a piece of paper that protects you from Vikings and marauders. And, so it does have its benefits. But the disbenefit is it's publicly accessible, which means, if you've got a creditor coming after you, they can see if you've got any property that they can encumber, they can stick a charge on it. But then you've also got the second title, which is the right of use. It's the beneficial title or the equitable title. And that right of use is more powerful. And I always kind of liken it to if you were to imagine a zombie apocalypse. So when we look at property, we look at it as if it's £250,000 worth of money. And that's because we've been programmed to value everything in fiat currency. But if we were in a zombie apocalypse, we'd look at that house and say, oh, it's a lock-in door, it's closing windows, it's a roof over my head. And that's the actual true value of property.
Shelter,
That's the beneficial title.
Yeah, it's the shelter that actually it provides basically because of the security that it has
And protection.
in the building itself.
Yeah, so I mean, if you actually have that beneficial title, if you have the right of use of that property, then it's not that you don't own it. I think there's a fallacy that if you registered it with the land registry, then it doesn't belong to you anymore. And I haven't seen any evidence that that's actually valid. So I've not been able to verify that claim. And I don't, if anybody has got verification that is handed over to the Crown, because I've heard that, but it's not necessarily true because, as I say, it's not been verified. I've not seen any verification of it. If you have it, please let me know.
So you would need very good reasons from, say, the Crown or the government or government agents to take somebody out of their house and repossess the house. I mean, the banks, obviously, if you've got a mortgage on it and you haven't paid or whatever, have got
it's how much,
even though you've created the actual bloody credit. I mean, that's, but let's not go down that bit.
Well, if it's a party has interest in it, they can actually basically make a claim against it, depending what interest is based in that property.
But if you have paid it all off, or you bought it
I know,
outright,
but that doesn't say you still not accumulate debt somewhere else, and they're going to come for it and use your house as the asset to claim it from.
No, yeah, okay, but just for the sake of argument, you have no other debts. You've paid off your mortgage. The house, as far as you're concerned, is yours, or at least, as Trina says, you've got the beneficial rights to use it. Even though there's the other title that may be somebody somewhere, the Crown or whomever, they would need a something. The old "you'll have nothing and be happy" thing that people are being told. We're going to take your house away, and tough titty, you have to go along with it. Tough titty. What a pity.
Well, that just comes into corporate takeover. That's the hostile takeover that they're doing. This is why all housing prices are going sky high, because as soon as the actual market crashes, they'll buy it all on pennies on the dollar. Then you will own nothing. That's how they're going to do it. This is how.
But will they take you? But if you've owned your, own it.
I know, but even if you want, this is what I'm saying. Even if you own your property, this is what I'm saying. There's other ways that you can get in debt. And like I say, and the way they're actually doing it now, because they're sending inflation so high, you're paying double for everything.
Yes.
So this is what I'm saying. So how easy, if that carries on, basically, and you're paying double on this and double on that, and you're paying, sometimes it's like on fuel, it's nearly triple now in the tax that have gone on it.
Right.
So like I say, so everything keeps going up, going up, going up. Like I say, and it gets to a point where, basically, regardless if you own it or not, you're going to have to maybe, because you've got no money left, because everything's been literally siphoned away.
Yes.
You then I'm going to have to get a loan on the house.
Wait. I take that point, but what I'm trying to get at is, if you haven't got yourself in debt, everything's gone up and up and up.
Yeah.
But hang on, wait. You have the choice not to. I know it might seem a poor choice, but you have the choice not to buy any fuel or heat your house.
You're just going to live in your house. You're just going to live in your house.
You're just going to live in your house, and you have. But what I'm saying is, there any way that because of the way the title system works, which if you own something, no one can have it because you own it. But because now you don't quite own it, you have the benefit. Is there any way, unless you have any debts, which let's say you don't, that somebody can take your house away, even though you've registered it on land registry? That's the nub of the fear, I think, that's behind the question.
Yeah, you do have the whole compulsory purchase order thing. So that's the one where the government can force you to sell your house to them so they can build a motorway through or something like that. But then I'm always enamoured about the story about Stott Hall Farm, which is smack bang in the middle of the M62. I don't know if you know that story at all. Now,
No.
See, they had to build it around. They had to build it around.
Yeah.
It's called Stott Hall Farm, and they had to build the motorway around it. Now, it never came out that the farm owners stood their ground. It never came out that they refused to sell. So, they've obviously kept it quiet, and they've been recompensed enough to not actually tell the truth. But there's always hope. But then you've also got the fact that, as I said before, if you're going to be doing challenges which are going to put your head above the parapet, and you think that there may be a claim coming in some far distant future, get the property out of your name. Then you can do what you like and not
protect
have
yourself
to worry.
again, protect your assets.
Yeah. So just about protecting your assets.
And it's interesting when we talk about compulsory purchases, what you've just said about the farm, which is really good news, because when you think it's compulsory, you think you are, compelled, you have to sell it. I guess it also depends on the price. Some people might accept a big price and forego the house. But I have heard of, with that, what's that big road? The H2, is the H2 the Chinese road that was coming through?
Chinese?
Yeah. Well, the Chinese are building it, weren't they?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
It's not a road from China. A spice.
Yes.
What do they call it?
The Silk Route.
The
Silk Route. It wasn't that one. It's another one. It's a big one.
Not HS2, but that kind of thing.
Yeah, it is HS2.
But a road. Not a railroad.
Yeah, the railway. Sorry, railway. The
Oh,
HS2.
HS2.
Yeah, the HS2.
Yeah,
the
you
railway.
confused me
Yes,
there.
I'm so sorry. I'm can easily confuse you and me. But no, because I met somebody the other day. The house that I'm about to buy. Somebody
Right.
wanted to buy the house that I'm hoping to buy.
Yeah.
And they had this compulsory purchase order from the HS2.
Oh,
but
right.
the money hadn't come through yet. But I think they got a lot of money.
Wait a
from
minute,
it.
they're not going to put HS2 through where you're
No,
sitting,
no,
right?
where they were coming from.
Oh, I
They
see.
wanted to move to the house that I want to move into. See.
Right,
So,
yes.
so yeah, just these compulsive.
Yeah.
It's a bit scary, but it's really good to know that maybe you don't have to give up your home.
Well, if
Maybe you
that
don't have to give up
farm,
your home
and
or
so
your
is
farm.
there that farm then is in a triangle stuck in the middle between the motorways?
It's a kind of
No,
like
it's-
big eye that
This
goes
goes
around
like
it.
this. You've got
Wow.
eastbound on one
Literally
side
goes
and westbound on the other.
Yeah, and it
Oh,
literally
right.
just got
Stuck
it
in the
literally
middle.
kind of an eye goes round it.
Oh, it can't
The
be very
poor-
pleasant then, can
the
it?
poor
Or the sheep
buggers
and, the sheep and all
living
that.
in there. What's out the window on that side of the house, darling?
Well, you should-
What's
you
on
should-
the other?
You should actually see the tunnels that they put in there as well, so subways so you can bring the animals across as well, because
Oh my
he's
God.
got subways on both sides, so you can bring the animals in,
Wow.
and then
They've
taking them
got
to,
triple
you know, so
glazing
they
as
can
well.
actually go to, so they can go to basically graze on the
Wow.
pasture, and then you can bring them all back, and they're big enough to actually put a tractor through.
Oh my
God.
goodness.
I wonder
How
why they
big- that's
want
how
to
big
live
they
there.
are.
Yeah.
I mean, it might have been a family home that's been in the family for centuries or something. But
It's
would
still
you
in
really
the
want to
same
live there?
family.
It
Oh
has
no,
been the
no,
same-
I think they sold it eventually. I think they
Yeah,
did
got
have
fed
new
up with
owners
all
now.
the yeah.
Perhaps we're going off the topic a little bit here, but perhaps they'll get the land back when everyone's been ousted out of their cars and motorways are silent, and they can roll up the tarmac and go farming again. Anyway, right, let's go on to another question. I've got a question here from J Film, who says, how can we stop social services from claiming our kids? It also wants to know how to contact Hayley Spells. That's a question for you. That's
Yep.
we won't put that on publicly because I don't know whether.
But she is coming on.
She's coming on the show.
I
Yeah,
think
there we
next
go.
week. Next 16th. Yeah.
But so how do we stop our kids now? I am doing a show on Monday with some people who are talking about exactly this: the trafficking of children, and social services are finding any excuse they can to take kids away. But another contact of mine, who is a social service chap, says it's incredibly difficult to separate children from. That's what he says. But I've had emails from loads of people saying, and I've had people on the show before saying, we've got kids, they're in social housing, they don't want to be there, we don't want them to be there, they can't return to us, all sorts of nasty things. So, Gary, have you got any thoughts on that?
Well, it's just a shame my sister's not here, because if my sister had been my eldest sister, she'd have been right on it and she'd have been told everything. It's just that's not an area that I've dealt with a lot. So
Right.
yeah, it's just I've dealt with a lot more, obviously different in civil and criminal matters. It's like one of the things I'm dealing with now is corporate manslaughter. So so it's I don't really deal in that area that much, because
No.
I'm especially
But is
because I'm
there
not a
pro- I mean,
parent
is there-
either, so I don't have
Is
kids.
there is there principles? You know, with the whole legal fiction thing. Is like, well, hang on a minute. Who owns the child? You can't possibly, if I claim my child, and not the legal fiction. I mean, is there any of that lawful stuff?
Well, it depends, because the simple fact is it's whether they actually acknowledge it.
Yes.
That's the thing. That all they've got is what's in front of them, and they'll just follow it through to the letter, because most of the jobs left. So
Anybody who's got boys and girls, I mean, David Edelman would have been a good person to have on this show to answer that,
Yes,
because
yeah.
he obviously deals with that sort of thing a lot. But anybody, you know, that castle doctrine type thing is like, what right have you got to take my offspring from me? And who gives you the authority if we're all born equal? You know, there must be that
well,
sort of thing.
I think it's also, you know, the child comes first, to protect the child. And I heard a story many years ago where this child was went to school, and they saw a bruise on the leg. So they took the child away from the parents, and they didn't take the child away for long, because when the child had a wash, the bruise went away. And the bruise was the name inside his welly boot.
Oh,
The
my
ink,
God.
the ink had rubbed off.
Right.
But the social guys came in and took that child away. So it's, you know,
That was a bit overreach, isn't
very
it?
overreach, very overreach, you know. But these things do happen.
Yes.
And you know, and I used to work for volunteer for Childline, and well, I won't say too much, but it seems quite easy for the child to be taken away from the parent if a story comes out from the child's mouth and you don't even know if the child is telling the truth or whatever. So it's a very difficult situation, a very hard one to discuss. But I think it's also worth mentioning Gary Waterman, who you've had on your show, who is being very active in this. And there's another chap, because we just had the Uprise and Shine conference over in East Sussex this weekend, and there's another chap that's getting involved. And I've been contacted through the Freedom Network, people talking to me about this thing going on with the children being taken and trafficked. And I think there is a gathering of the troops. You know, we've got council tax going on, 5G going on, all sorts going on, but I think this child thing, this child trafficking is just horrendous, and there is movement.
And if anybody wants to know more about it, then I can recommend Liberty Tactics with Lou Collins. Just search Liberty Tactics podcast, because that's what they do, and they also talk a lot about the school curriculum and the stuff that children are being forced to learn. And the parents have doesn't matter what their consent is, it's overridden. And it's absolutely. And in Wales,
do you know why that is, Richard? Why they can override them? Because
go on.
Essentially, they've got a loco parentis position, so they're a guardian. So essentially, they're loco parentis over the child. So they can make decisions for them. And also, I don't know if you've heard of Gillick competence before, but basically, essentially, a 14-year-old child now can make actual decisions on medical intervention at 14, because it's 14. Called Gillick competence, So there's a lot they've actually brought into place through legislation, so they can actually get over these basic parental authority over them.
But if so are you saying that local parentis trumps being a parent?
No, local parentis just gives them the power to make decisions for them.
Right, but if a parent
that
says...
includes their education. So if they feel this is what needed in education, they can make that decision to actually incorporate it. It's like, I know as a teacher myself, the things that I've had to actually stop teaching and start teaching other things, especially, it's like in psychology. It's like 10 years ago, I was teaching that. I was a scientific subject, literally scientific subject, going through the scientific method and how that works. Now I'm talking about relationships and emotions and feelings.
But and how do you feel about that?
Oh, bloody hell! It makes me it sends me insane sometimes. Because
and no disrespect to yourself, but why do teachers who disagree with some of the, say, sexualization of children, why would they go along with it? And if they use the excuse, I'm just doing my job, isn't that what the Nazis, the guards and what have you said during the Nuremberg?
You've got to remember that the reason that happened, basically, especially during Nuremberg, is because they had a belief in a very powerful, well-spoken and, how can we say, persuasive leader. So they actually thought that what he was saying was the facts. They took that on as a mindset because he created a dominion of the German people. They all agreed with him. And it's
but do teachers agree?
There's a lot of teachers that agree with it. Trust me. I've been in
4-year-olds should be taught masturbation.
Well, it's not a case of masturbation, but they see this is what I'm saying, that when they're actually looking at it that way, they're saying that a child should be able to explore themselves. And that firstly meant to explore their own mind and question their reality. Now they've took it a step further.
But kids can just do that in their own time as they grow up. I mean, that's what I did. I explored myself, and I wasn't worried about it. It wasn't an idea that I needed to.
You weren't taught it.
It didn't have to be introduced.
So that's where local apprentice comes back in. Because local apprentices, they can make that decision for them because the child can't.
But they shouldn't, though, should they?
But I'm thinking.
No, I'm not saying they should, but
no.
At primary school level,
is the local parentis, this is when you pass your children over to the state to educate them. So when the children come out of school, then the parent is still back in charge.
Only when the child stepped through the threshold of the door of your house.
So therefore,
up to that threshold, the actual school is still on the authority.
So you're handing over responsibility to your child. Therefore, so the teachers and the school therefore takes responsibility. But when the child comes back into your home, then you take responsibility. So this is where the choice is: do you want the state to educate your children? So
just hang on a minute. Just say that again. Gary, say that again. That only within the threshold of your house that you have
authority over the child. Only basically during the school week. Literally, when your child leaves, because they've got the uniform on,
right?
That's why they get them to wear uniform. Not to get them uniform in class, but to make them stand out as a member of basically like it would be like a union. when you become basically they've created dominion over them. And so once they put that uniform on and step outside their house, the school is now responsible for them. So if anything happens to that child, the school is responsible. The same thing, as soon as they leave school on an evening, when they're going home, until they actually get through the front door, the school is responsible right up to your threshold.
So if there's certain things you don't want your child to be taught, because I remember when I was at school and there's a lot of children would leave when we had Christian assemblies because they had a different religion. So the same thing, I guess, would apply. I mean, it was a long time since I was at school and my children, but if you don't want your children to be taught alphabet things, I mean, dodgy alphabet, colourful rainbow things, then maybe you would send a letter saying, I don't want my child to be in that lesson.
And guess what happens?
That's exactly right.
But then they probably ignore it. I don't know.
No, it's not a case of ignoring it. No, that child gets segregated and they get treated like a leper. So they actually then, the child wants to be involved because they don't want to be left out from all the friends. So they get them anyway.
Yeah.
It's a case of if you're not going to home educate, then you have to be a helicopter parent. But when Gary says about loco parentis, it's still a contractual thing between the parent and the school. So when my kids went to a particular school, I had to sign to hand that authority over to the school. And you can put conditions on it. If you're creating a contract, any contract with the school, you can put conditions on it. And also you can send notices in as well. And it may be that they get segregated out, but as long as they understand why they're being segregated out, because that's also going to be a learning opportunity for them as well, because they're going to have to grow in this world knowing other things that people don't know, because they've got you as parents.
Yes.
Very valid point.
Well, I totally, absolutely get the thing. Get your kids out of school whilst the curriculum.
All I would say to that is, you try saying that to a 6-year-old.
What?
That's all I'd say to that. No, putting them, segregating them off, and then asking them to understand why they're being put there and the actual different opinion that your parents have. I'm sorry, the 6-year-old will have that actual ideology. They'll want to be with their friends.
Yeah, not mine. I'm
not saying yours, but I'm just saying in general.
I've got forum. I always talk to them all the way through for every decision I have made on their behalf. And they learned to understand and also trust me as well.
But like I said, they're still their own people, and when they go out, they'll have their own opinion based on the facts that exactly. And this is what I'm trying to get from a psychological point of view. You try and say that to a normal 6-year-old that hasn't had the background or education that you've been able to give them, and then ask them to actually understand why they're being segregated.
I see what you mean. If it was another parent who didn't have that way of being
exactly, and then the child's being segregated off, and that child well, what's going on here? I don't understand. Is it something I've done wrong? That's what the child's going to think, and then that creates basically childhood depression for them because they don't understand what's going on now.
That's why it's so very important to make sure that you do communicate with your kids. I mean, there's a saying in Spain: school is for schooling, home is where you educate, and that's what's most important when it comes to parenting, I believe.
And the mug that I've been drinking from today, the power of critical thinking, question everything. When do we start to teach our children to question everything? So
not at school, you don't. They don't question anything.
No, but again, if you are segregating that child for whatever reason, with that explanation is because child, you want to question everything. It is a young age to start, but when do you start?
Don't get them. Don't take them to school. Don't put them in the school system.
You can start at any time, because it's like I was lucky enough to have 2 parents that actually helped me see, basically, not beyond the veil, as it were, but just a case of if something they always said to me, Gary, if there's something that you're confused about or you don't understand, ask.
Yes.
And so I just got into that rhythm of that when I was at school, just going
and do teachers
what about this and what about this and why that and how comes that?
And do teachers at school encourage children to ask if there's something that's confused about?
Well,
not really. No.
Because a question here from Jay Film talking about school. He says, my kid was bullied and hurt. I called the police. They did nothing. Social did nothing. Reported the headmaster to the police. Nothing. The school seems to have its own jurisdiction. So if something like that happens, what would you suggest to this person here, Jay Film, or to anybody in that situation?
Well, you go to one of the ways straight away is go to the local LEA, the local education authority, and lodge a complaint and actually get it stamped, and then send that to the school to say that you're actually officially going to complain, and then go to the police as well to actually lodge a complaint with them that this has happened in the school. If any physical contact happens to your child, it's still assault. So you actually get the police involved and say, look, I want to put official complaint in, this child has hurt my child, basically, and I want to actually get the parents involved in this of the other child, because I want to bring charges against them, because basically this is still assault regardless. Because it happened in one of the schools that my nephew was in, and basically there was a 14-year-old lad that actually molested an 11-year-old girl in the changing rooms. He got basically not only put into another school, but when in that school, he couldn't actually go anywhere but these 2 classrooms that he was in on his own. So, like I say, it's not like that nothing can be done. It's just you've got to start the complaint procedure, get the complaints in place, so everybody knows that this has happened, because schools, because of the panopticon facilities, they see, and a panopticon facility essentially is like a prison. It's a viewpoint that you can see everything from. Hence why schools have big fences around them. It's not for safety. It's the simple fact it's panopticon. It's to keep them in, not to keep people out.
Yeah.
So that's how the So you've got to actually take it outside, obviously, the fence, and then bring in the legal and the lawful, basically, over the fence to them.
I think David,
they can get away with it.
I think David Edelman's out there, the People's Lawyer, who's just reminding us there that UK School No Place for Children, his book is available. If you want to jump on into the panel, David, you'd be very welcome. I can send you the link.
I can send that to him now.
If you're able to, as we've gone into the school discussion.
And talking of school, whilst I'll set you up with this question or this statement from Jane Astra, it says, your children are property, in capitals. You have to claim them. How, I'm not sure, but may have something to do with claiming the living certificate, which is the date it was registered, according to a previous guest.
Yes.
So is
the statement of live birth, that's what you need. If you're
from the midwife.
It's from the Midwife Association. They're the ones that fill that out, that actually notify the General Registry Office that basically there's been a live birth. So, like saying, that document, essentially, it's a document, it's not a certificate, it's actually just a document that's filled out to say, yes, there was a child basically delivered on this day at this time. This is the name they've given them, and here's the witnessing of this child being born alive and not being born dead, as it were. So that that certificate of life statement would be literally, and if you're a mother anyway, you should be able to go to your child's actual medical records, and it should be the first document that's in the actual medical record, because that's where you get your NHS number from, your medical registration number.
Ah, interesting.
So that's where the MRN number comes from, essentially, from that document, and that's what makes your NHS number. So if you can get that document, then that's the claim on your child, essentially, because you're not using the birth certificate now, you're using the statement of live birth, and you can actually get that basically notarized and then use that as their identification.
David's just coming on board.
David's
from a legal
just coming.
Perspective.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah,
That's
from
right.
a legal perspective, the mother would have, it's called parental responsibility. And so the mother would get parental responsibility automatically. And if she's married to the father and he's named on the birth certificate, then the father gets parental responsibility as well. So you have that. I wouldn't say they're property. They're their own individual living souls, and but you would have what the legal realm recognise as a claim to be responsible for them.
David, welcome to the panel.
Yeah, hi everyone. Great discussion. Glad to be able to add hopefully something to it.
It's great to see you there and promoting your book, which is a very good read. And for anybody who's got kids in school or is worried about it, I definitely recommend it. We've got it. In fact, you very generously gave it to us, but that's neither here nor there. It is a good read. What can you add?
Can I interrupt? It's also a good listen, apparently. It's now an audio book as well.
Oh, did you do the audio?
Yeah, I did. I didn't trust anybody to tell my story and the story of schooling better than I can, because I've lived it.
Yes, of course. So parental guidance and all of that is what we've been discussing. Any additional thoughts that you can help our questioner?
Just remind me what the original... Was it to do with social services and stopping them from taking children?
Yes,
that's right.
The first one, yeah.
Okay. All right, let me try and break this down a little bit. If we have one sole mother or one sole father who is not being molested by anybody else, then it's a question of the consciousness of that mother or father. And if they are sufficiently conscious, they will know that schooling is a crime against humanity, and that will motivate them to do the right thing. And it shouldn't be difficult. They can consult with me or someone that does the kind of things that I do, and job done. Because at the end of the day, social services are just like agents, and just as it said in the Matrix, you can easily fend off an agent. You just withdraw the oxygen from them and their authority, and you treat them with nice, gentle, respectful contempt, using the power of the question at all times. Now, that's also true if mother and father are both in agreement. So either one parent, and I use that phrase loosely, or two parents both in agreement, you don't really have a problem. All they need to know is how to assert their 9 out of 10 property rights. You know, possession is 9/10, etc. But the real problem comes, and this is what I've been finding for some time now, is when you have a dispute, not between you and social services, but between you and either an ex or a soon-to-be ex, who the social services will side with, because that ex or soon-to-be ex is basically a pawn of the system and is bought and sold on the system. That's when it gets very fraught.
The ex being what, a father or a relation to the child?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yes, there must be some parental rights involved.
Yes.
So I've got a current situation going with someone who's taking consultancy, and they're saying that that there's a court date been set and that the ex has got a solicitor involved. And I'm just reminding them that the court is a public space to do business, and it's a dispute resolution of last resort. So what you do is you stay in the private, and you contact your ex or contact someone else who will contact the ex, and you come to some private arrangement, even if that means pulling teeth, because that private arrangement, however much it involves compromise, will always be superior. If you are a dissident, if you are a free thinker and your boy or girl is showing signs of free thinking, it will always be superior to whatever the court says, and you don't have to submit to court jurisdiction. It's all, they're offering you a contract. So the simple remedy is to stay in control of the situation. It's maybe easier said than done if you're new to lawful remedy and lawful sovereignty, but it's not difficult once you grasp the nettle, and that's why this panel and other people who are, you know, like Trina and Gary and others, you know, we're available to advise people. It's becoming my specialism for obvious reasons, you know, as an author on education and as the people's lawyer. So if people need consultancy, they can email me, info@thepeopleslawyeruk.com, which is what people have been doing regularly. So I don't know if that answers the question fully, but I think it probably gets us, you know, if there's anything else, let me know.
Gets us through it, doesn't it? And if there's more to it, maybe the person or people can put something in the chat with question at the beginning so we can follow it on if need be.
So I'm a big fan of what David was saying there about alternative dispute resolution. Now, there's lots of private dispute resolution organizations. You know, there's the whole arbitration, mediation. There's a lot you can do before it goes to court, and it's a lot cheaper and it's a lot quicker. And if you can do as much as you can in the private, then yeah, you're a lot better off. So I just wanted to highlight that, David. I totally agree.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks, Trina. And the other thing that I have, I developed from a comment made by Mark Horn a few years ago on a Zoom call that I was on. It's something called the golden question. And it's basically when any agent is challenging you to hand over the goods, whether it's money or children, then you simply ask them the golden question, which is, what claim are you making over my, in this case, biological property, or my son or my daughter? What claim are you making? That's part one. Part two is upon what lawful basis? And part three is with which living testimony in support, not documentary testimony, living testimony. I mean, that could be an affidavit from a living man or woman, but it's, in other words, they want to play the gossip hearsay. We are told that. No. Who told you? And what are their names? And have they sworn an affidavit to that effect? So you just, that golden, even part one is enough. But if you hit them with all three parts to that question, the golden question, which I've named it so that people can readily remember what it is. And it's in my course, and it's also a video on my website. So if you're not investing in the course, you can go on the website and watch it for free. So the golden question will see off most agents most of the time.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, we better move on to other things.
Another question, yeah.
But before we get to that question, it's time for a little commercial break. That is to say, if you're in the Swindon area tomorrow night, a bald bloke called Richard Vobes will be talking at Cricklade Village Hall. Price is £5. We'd like somebody to come at least, otherwise I've got a wasted journey. So if you're down in that neck of the woods at Cricklade, do come along. I think it's at 7 o'clock in the evening, and I shall be talking. And that was our commercial break. Now back to the studio.
Can I just ask what you're talking about?
Yeah, you can ask, but as yet,
you haven't decided.
I haven't decided. Apparently, there's a big fire somewhere up north with big clouds of smoke. I don't know how true that is. Or there might be white elephants in Parliament, that subjects they're not talking about.
Who knows?
I won't be talking about any of that. I'll probably be talking about all the nonsense I normally talk about.
Good. Take your briefcase.
Yes, thanks.
Sator one? Should I?
Please, yes, go on to another question.
So, what to do if you're sent an unopened speeding red light breach intention to prosecute? Got that? But it's sent to my name, but it's Mrs. or Mr. My mother is a registered keeper, and I don't want her bothered. Does that make sense? So
she's got a speeding ticket sent to her mother because
the other way? Yeah.
Because the car's in her mother's name.
Yeah, I think so. What to do if you're sent an unopened speeding or red light breach intention to prosecute, but it's sent to my name, but it's actually Mrs. of Mr. My mother is the registered keeper, and I don't want her bothered. So the mother is obviously at home knitting, and she's got the ticket from. Yeah, David's hand went up.
Yeah, can I jump in here with, well, these days, because we're in a war, there isn't really time to look too much into the details of the niceties. So if you're going to respond to this, and whether you respond to it depends on who you are, what you want out of driving under license. So there's lots of variables, but if you are going to respond, one thing you could do, just a suggestion, is say, well, I've spoken to the to all the people that operate this conveyance. None of us can recall where we were or what we were doing on the day in question. Awfully sorry. We've tried our best to find out, to investigate, brackets, free of charge, close brackets. But our investigations have proved fruitless. Now, you're ticking all the boxes. You've attempted to assist them in their inquiries. It hasn't worked out, and that should be the end of that one.
Yes, and many of us these days are having short-term memories about where we've driven because there's so many diversions and different, there's roadworks. It's all very challenging getting into a conveyance, and when you're travelling, it's very difficult to remember whether it was you or your friend or a neighbour or whoever.
And notice also, Richard, when one of those top political figures is charged with some kind of heinous crime, they can never recall either saying or doing or being part of. They go to the it's the defense of amnesia.
Plausible deniability.
That's it.
Plausible deniability. Thanks, Gary. That's an even better phrase. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And we vote these people. Well, no, I haven't. But people vote these people in with such short-term memories like goldfishes. You wonder. No wonder the country's in a mess. Anyway.
Well, you do know something that comes from the plebeian cycle in political science. That the plebeian cycle, one of the actual fundamental principles of it is forgetting what the previous person did, and as a successor, you're allowed to forget what they've done.
Sounds like me.
And that's actually that's called the plebeian cycle, basically.
The what?
They actually,
The
plebeian.
plebeian cycle.
yeah,
Plebeian cycle.
basically,
Yeah.
yeah. That they can actually forget basically what previous people have done because they're the successors, so they're not
doesn't
basically
matter.
doesn't matter to them because they didn't do it.
So that's why they're bringing in all those cycle lanes in. Then
Exactly,
have the
yeah.
plebeians
And
on them.
then that's why do you think the government reshuffles all the time?
Well, yeah, because they
Why,
don't
that's
know.
why.
What did he do? I
Because then
don't
they
know,
can
you
forget
do
what's
your-
done because it's like, oh, now I'm in this office.
It's
I
his
don't know what
fault.
went
It's
in
his
that.
fault.
I ain't got a clue.
Yeah.
So-
It's like when you get a builder, isn't it? You get a contractor and they stand there and they go,
Oh, the teeth
oh,
dryer.
I don't know who did that job for you, but
That's,
you know,
I wouldn't have done that.
It's
No,
what
I
they,
wouldn't
it's,
have
what
done it
they,
that way.
it's what they call the teeth dryer. My dad used to do it all the time. Oh, it's going to be a bit that.
Oh, I can't stand it. I got a question.
Yes, fire
Lost
away.
it. Oh, here we go. Stacey.
Yes.
She asks, how do you deregister your land registry? I think that one's got to be for Trina, isn't it? We were talking about it yesterday, Trina.
Yeah, it's something I've tried and failed. The only way I can liken it to is if you were to go into the local park and make a list of all the trees. Now, it doesn't mean that you own the trees, but that it's your list. And then somebody says to me, take that tree off your list. I'll be like, no, I'm not going to. We can't really force them to take something off of their list, which is the problem. And believe me, I have tried many years ago, and I've had a bit of a back and forth with land registry, telling them I don't want them to record my property. But then since then, I've seen the upside of the land registry in that, as I say, you've got this piece of paper, it's got your name on, you're protected from Vikings and marauders, and it does have that benefit as well. So
do we get many Vikings and marauders?
Yeah, 'cause I like some of them.
I mean, I live near the coast, and I'm slightly concerned now.
Richard, can I ask you this? Why do you think you actually point the head of your bed away from the door so it's facing the door? You know where you're the head of your bed? It faces the door, doesn't it? You know why that is? That's
To see who's
from
coming.
You haven't been in my bedroom. How do you know? How do you know where I
everybody
place?
does it. Everybody does it. Literally, they put their head of the bed facing the door, and that is because of marauders. So if anybody comes in, they have time to get out of bed to stop it. That's
Actually,
I think
mine-
that should exist.
so that's
They're
where
just
that comes from.
Something else now.
Yeah. Anyway, so well, I don't. Mine is on the same wall as the door.
Well, then
to
again,
be honest.
you can bring feng shui into it, can't you? It's got to be
Oh,
placed in a
It's
certain way for the
it's
energy.
feng shui. It's feng
Feng
shui.
shui, not
Yeah.
feng shui.
No,
That's,
yeah,
that's
well,
what you have for
it's-
dinner.
You're
yeah?
thinking of Hong Kong.
No,
food.
no.
Feng shui.
No,
Feng
God
shui.
almighty.
We've got to remember it means wind.
I'm
and
sorry,
water,
folks. This is
so-
a serious show, by the way,
It's
but
entertainment. We try
it's,
and make light of it.
it's
Yeah.
almost the
You've got
weekend.
to remember that feng shui basically means wind and water. So basically, everybody says feng shui, and it's not actually feng shui; it's feng shui
Feng shui.
because it's actually wind and water. Basically, and that's what you're doing in your house. You get the flow of air, and you put
Yeah,
certain
yeah.
actual water features in the house to actually keep that flow, and you get
Yeah.
wood and metal and stuff like that to cut, and so you can
And I
actually get the
believe
balance.
it. I totally
But
believe it.
it's not feng shui; it's feng shui.
Feng shui.
Feng shui.
Anyway, sorry,
Gary.
Trina. We jumped in on the Vikings and the marauders there. That's obviously
did,
is that a
yes,
technical
yeah.
phrase?
I like Vikings.
Oh no, it's just what I call them because we still
Right.
get them, don't we? We're always going to have people putting claims in against our property, and you know whether they're debt collectors or some sort of creditors, they're just Vikings and marauders still, aren't they? We're still fighting
Right.
them after thousands of years.
We just can't use broadswords and
No.
hammers. Well,
Well,
I suppose we can, but
Not legally.
we're not not
Pieces of
according-
paper.
Yes, exactly.
Pieces of paper.
Well,
So,
under
Etta-
common law, you can. Under common law, you can actually bear arms.
Oh,
Under
Especially
Can you?
if you're
under
in-
common
if
law,
you're
you
in
can
your
bear
own
arms.
property
Yeah.
as well. Yeah,
Because
you're
it's
in your own
like-
property as well.
It's like when I've been on my own property, I've got 7 weapons that I practice with outside because I can't practice in the house with them. But nobody's said a word to me. I know they might not say
Well, they
it.
daren't.
Yeah, scared
Who's
to
going to
death,
walk
Gary.
up to you,
Simple fact
Gary, when you've got your machete flying
bury
around?
your arms.
Well,
yeah.
no, but it's a simple fact is if I stepped off my property, then there'd be a problem because I'd have to
Right.
get achieved.
Your
But
castle.
but the thing is, I can walk about with an air rifle as long as it's in a case, but I'm not trying to hide it. So I can walk around with an air rifle, and I can walk around. It's like I've been to basically a common land essentially, and actually used my butterfly swords to actually practice with, and nobody said a goddamn thing. Because why? Because I didn't actually try to hide them first. I didn't try to conceal
Right.
them. And when I
Yeah.
actually carried them about, I actually put them in their actually sheaths to keep them safe, so nobody else could use them. So that's what I'm saying. So I'm
Gary,
allowed. So under common law, I'm allowed to carry weapons, but as long as I don't try and conceal them.
Gary,
Right.
you mentioned, sorry, Gary, I just want to pick up on something you said there. You mentioned when you go to common land. Do you mean commons? You know, the old type
land.
of land
Oh,
that was
land-
available to the
land-
public.
Yeah, land that's actually owned by the council, essentially.
Yeah.
They call it common land because they can't build on it, essentially. It's like
Yeah,
it's part of the green belt.
it always used to be called a commons, didn't it? And
Yeah,
it was because it was
common.
available to us commoners.
Yeah, and that's
And
why
they
it came
kind of
from
lost
common
that.
land.
That was so we could graze our sheep.
Yeah, essentially. And it's like...
But see, I do know a little bit, Richard. You're looking surprised there.
No,
but also some common land it has been built on by the developers because
Oh,
there's
yeah,
money
well, that's
in it.
because it's been reappropriated by the council.
Yes,
They can reappropriate land anytime
Yeah,
they
money,
want.
money.
Yeah, they can
I've got another
reappropriate
question.
it in farmland. It doesn't really matter to them.
You know, somebody who set up. Sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say, I do know somebody who set up an organisation trying to reclaim the common land for the commoners. So it's kind of bringing the commons back into use.
Brilliant. That's what we need to do. We might have to knock down a few houses, but we could do that. What is it? Compulsive purchasing thing again?
Compulsive purchase order.
Yeah, for the common land. What about if you have a mortgage on your house? Can you put it in a trust, Trina?
Yes, you can. So it's a bit of a worry that people believe. It's not a worry, you know. It's all part of the systems programming. That yes, okay, you've contracted with the mortgage provider to allow them to put a charge against the legal title of your property, but it doesn't mean they own your house. I get a lot of people come on to me and say, "Oh, it's mortgaged, so I don't own it." Yeah, you do. You still have that beneficial right of use, and that title, as I say, is the most powerful thing. And you can put that beneficial title into trust. So you're a beneficiary anyway. When the mortgage is still encumbering the legal title. But
Are you the only beneficiary?
no, you can have whatever beneficiaries you like, and a beneficiary can make a trust out of their beneficial interest and give it to somebody else. You know, you can create trusts all over the place.
But I suppose what I
yes,
meant was the mortgage people wouldn't be a beneficiary, would they?
Well, they don't have the right of use of the property.
Right.
Yeah. So no. Yeah, they wouldn't be a beneficial. Oh,
Good question,
Dave's got his
though.
hand up.
David.
Uh-oh.
Just something I've noticed. This is a generalization that people seem to think that they don't have any rights if somebody else owns their home. So I've had people say many times, "Oh, I don't have a home. The council own it." I said, "I beg your pardon. Well, where do you live then? You know, your home is where you live." And the castle principle, which allows you to defend yourself using reasonable force, which can ultimately be lethal force. But obviously, you're not going to go straight to that. You know, it'd be very tempting with some of these bailiffs, but you know, you're going to go, increment
Not that we're encouraging anything, David, eh?
No, absolutely. We're men and women of total peace, usually. So just because the council technically own it and you're only renting, or it could be a private landlord, it's still your home, and therefore you are entitled to keep the door shut and defend it with reasonable force. So there's no paperwork required. If it's your home, it's your home. So as long as people really, really need to get some clarity on that, you know, at home. I mean, I'm talking about those listening, because it seems to be a fairly common theme. So I just wanted to reiterate that.
No, and presumably that is if you're renting and you've paid up, you're not in arrears.
Yeah, you've contracted to get the right of use. So
Yes.
you've actually bought the beneficial title, albeit for a month. It's still, you have the right of use of that property.
I was just questioning only if it's your own home, but you might be a little bit behind in the payment. Does that then? Well, it's not your own home anymore.
There's all kinds of procedures. Sorry,
the thing to remember is contract makes the law. That's the easiest way to actually explain that. As soon as you've got a contract, that makes the law. Simple as.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, that is actually, when you say it like that, it's very simple. The contract makes the law, and that's binding all the time because you've agreed to it.
And you both signed it, haven't you? So, was David going to add anything to that?
No. Obviously, if you are in arrears and there is a due legal process being carried out to repossess, then that will change things. But it won't change things until they get a lawful or legal warrant for repossession.
Yeah, because that's seen as a breach of the contract. So obviously, then the legal from the lawful bind that you have.
Absolutely. I just wanted to say that because I didn't know I was coming on, I have to go in 5 minutes. So if I suddenly disappear, I'm not being rude. I just have to go.
But it was great to have you on that, particularly on the children's question. That was very, very beneficial.
I really, really appreciate being able to jump on at that point. Yeah, thanks, Richard.
Thank you.
We too.
Thanks, Karen.
Neil's got one. Or do you want to go?
Well, I'm just going to say this is just a very quickie. Richard, this is from Jane Kelly, who says, Richard, when are you going to do more interviews about the state kidnap of our children through the corrupt family courts and the privatised care system? I'm recording something on Monday with 2 different people who will be talking about this. I mean, I'm no expert, so I'm just hosting it. And that show will probably go out on the Tuesday. So hopefully that will be another one. And I know Gary Waterman it may well be on that as well. So
very much in vogue at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, but somebody who does, as I mentioned before, Lou Collins on Liberty Tactics is well worth having a listen on her podcast, and just do search for Liberty Tactics podcast. Brilliant. Over to you, Karen.
Okay, so Neil says, question from Neil: I have taken on civil cases through Money Claim Service thanks to the Data Protection Act, but you can't use it to claim from a council or government. Is there a DIY legal route?
Not using a Black & Decker.
Yeah, or a saw.
Just looking for our panel to see if they've...
Shall I reread it?
Yes, please.
Yeah, could you reread that so I get a full hand?
Because the spelling, I have to try and translate it. But I have taken on civil cases through Money Claim Service thanks to the Data Protection Act, but you can't use it to claim from a council or government. Is there a DIY legal route?
Money claim, they're talking about payment protection insurance. They're talking about that type of money claim.
Oh.
What type of money claim are they talking about?
What type? What type?
Yes,
because that's the bit that's confusing me. It's like, are they relating it, basically trying to relate what would happen basically with PPI and that data given, and then basically what would happen with the council, and that information being obviously shared between other third parties within the government and council, because there's always that actual grey area, because like I said before, it's like if you think about on mobile phones, basically they say that you've got third party access, and that's for people that actually have apps on the phone so they can get data, and that's not illegal. That's what I'm saying. So in the sense of claiming monies and that personal data being passed around, you won't be able to relate that to what the government and the council are doing. So that's what I'm saying. So what do they mean by that? That's the bit that confuses me.
So maybe we could ask the questioner just to re-ask the question just so
a bit more clarity.
Because that is one of the problems that we would have, as we do have, is if the question, I know people are writing them very fast, but we've got to interpret them, and then obviously the panel's got to interpret them so they get it completely right for you.
Don't forget also that with the council, because they're not actually subject to money claim, if you you have to exhaust their internal complaints procedure, and once you've done that, you can knock it up to the ombudsman. So I don't know if that is what he means.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to say about local government actual ombudsman. You can actually go straight to them and lodge a complaint. But like I said, if it's on money, then you're going to be hard pressed getting money back out of them, unless you've actually got an actual valid complaint. Sorry, Dave. Yeah.
I can just give another take. What the questioner might mean is that, without actually saying it, is that ICO, Information Commissioner's Office, don't tend to field issues that relate to government or council, because as they said during COVID, we're all in this together. So in that case, the remedy is potentially single out living men and women in high office and see what you can get out of them, because ultimately they are aiding and abetting these data breaches. So yeah, that's my little pen's worth.
You can actually make a claim against the public health as well, the public health liability, because they have a criminal and civil liability based on their the position in office. So you can actually then claim against their bond. So you can actually make a claim against their bond as well.
Yes, the Americans do that for fun. There's a site on Telegram called, was it Bond for the Win or
Mickey Clan? Mickey Clan,
yeah.
Well, actually,
anyway, on that note,
they still have here basically insurance based on their personal office. As they take the off to their office, they have an actual public oath bond based on that, which gives them liability. So if you can get them on their personal capacity, then basically then you can actually make a claim on them rather than on the council itself.
Brilliant. I think David's got to go.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thanks,
for joining
David.
us.
David.
Bye,
Right,
Tina.
okay.
Bye, Gary.
Sorry.
Good night, Jim Boy. Good night, Jim Bob.
That's Ellen.
It's gone. Right, weapons, says J Film. Sorry, I jumped in with a question
jump
here.
away.
Jump. Weapons. Are we now allowed to reclaim our right to lawfully bear arms, as now the police and government can no longer protect us? Is that true? Are they claiming they can no longer protect us?
I do have bare arms.
Yes, I've got bare legs. Does that... not that anyone wants to see my bare legs today.
Oh,
but,
no.
do you mind? The lovely Julia doesn't mind my legs. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased.
Julia's getting excited over there. The eyebrows are going up and down.
So, yeah, are we allowed to reclaim our... It says reclaim our rights. Are they just not... and, you know, this is the thing with sovereignty, isn't it? These are rights that you just have inherently. You haven't got to ask for rights. But I guess in the legal world, it's a different ball game. But it says, are we able to reclaim our rights to lawfully bear arms now the police and government can no longer protect us? So if they can't protect us...
Can we protect ourselves?
Can we protect ourselves, Gary?
Well, I'd say on property, more definitely. Yeah, but like I say, I won't just start walking around the street with weapons, because you'll have the, depending on where you are, basically you'll have that armed response come after you.
But certain religions allow you to, don't they?
Well, it's not a case of so much religion. It's a case of there's certain arms that you can carry. It's like I said, you can carry an air rifle down the street. It's like I've carried air rifles down the street. My nephew has, and he's got actually very high-powered ones that he goes shooting with, but he just carries them. And basically, because he's got them in a holder, but he's not trying to conceal them.
No, it's the intention.
Right.
Basically, then it's fine. Like I say, it's like any time that I've took my martial arts weapons to like common land, because you can on common land, because I can claim common land. And I can actually claim my status on it. So I can actually say I'm on common land. I'm not actually in anybody's way. I've made sure that all the public are far enough away from me so they won't get hurt. And I'm only using training weapons. They're not actually, they can't be used actually as an actual weapon because they're not sharp.
Right.
So like I say, there is a grey area on the street and where you go to, with weapons. But like I say, I know with air rifles and stuff like that, as long as they're sheathed and they're not concealed, you're fine. And it's like,
I'm just wondering whether the questioner is saying that if the police and the government can no longer protect you, I'm wondering what
yeah, no,
from.
But then you got.
But would it be?
Can we protect ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, let's say there were Vikings and marauders, for example, coming in.
Well, then you've got the right to self-defense. That's self-defense. Then that's completely different. You've got the right to self-defense.
Yeah.
It's like,
okay.
I know that somebody in Hull before, basically, and this was a few years ago now, but basically the guy at the time was working on his car and he had a screwdriver because he was working on his car. He was doing some basically, maintenance on his car. This kid started on him basically, and he actually ended up stabbing him in the chest and killing him. And basically, when he came in, the police said, "What went on?" And the guy said, "I was in fear of my life," and just because basically he jumped on me, I just turned and just stuck it in him. And it's saying basically, and that's what I'm saying. So it depends on what you're talking about as weapon as well.
Right.
Because I think does the intention have anything to play in this? So if you're walking down with a knife, but you're just going to give it to somebody or selling it, then fine.
Then it'd be basically sheathed, then it'd be in a box.
Sheathed, that's what I mean.
It'll be safe. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, so it's hidden.
If you just had a knife in around you walking,
then
it's
so it's your intention, isn't it? But then also, talking of knives, I remember when flick knives, I think kids used to have them at school, but then they were banned, weren't they? Because they were very dangerous. So maybe again, is that part of the question? Flick knives. I don't like knives.
Well, knives and,
but basically, I mean, it seems to come back to, I mean, if you, as you say, if you have something to hand and you're being attacked and you change what it is into a weapon, a screwdriver is
self-defense,
that's self-defense, and the fact that he killed the guy because he was in fear of his life, that's
what he said. That's what he said to the police. He said, I felt in fear of my life because he said all I was doing was I was doing some maintenance on my car, and then all I had was somebody just jump on me, and he said I just turned and I just turned and
stabbed the
I just turned and it basically just impaled him, unfortunately.
Yeah.
See, we don't have the law like just to have guns, do we? I mean, I don't like weapons.
We do.
I really don't.
Yeah, we do. It's just you need a license.
Yes, but I mean,
So
like
you
in America,
have
it's
that.
like normal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because cowboys and Indians, you know, all the cowboys, you would have a gun, so that law seems to have carried through. Whereas in England, you can have a gun, but you have to. It's not a normal thing to do, is it? You have to go and get that special license.
Exactly.
Section
Yeah.
5,
Well,
yeah.
even in America, you still need to have, there is an element of scrutiny. It still needs to be
Yeah.
registered. You
Especially
still
for
need to have
mental
a
health.
cooling off.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it comes down to
Interesting.
mental health, yeah, because you have to
Yeah,
check
of
it for mental
course.
health just in case,
Yeah.
because you might use it on yourself. That's another worry that they have,
Yeah,
that you
of
might use it
course.
on yourself.
They'd probably be
Right.
happy for that, wouldn't they? Sorry.
Well,
I didn't say that.
so we'll move on to another question. I've got a question here. This is an interesting one, and very much is my Biggleswick question.
Oh, Biggleswick.
Remember Biggleswick? So this is from Thomas Moran, who says, would it be possible to create our own town with our own rules?
That's
Yes.
definitely a Gary. That's what
Yeah,
he's been trying to do.
But
Dominion.
especially with Dominion,
Shires.
yeah. But you've got to get everybody to agree to a unique collective awareness. This is the thing. And it's like, I know I always go back to the example of how Islam has taken over 20% of London now. And the reason is because they've got a unique collective awareness under Islam. I'm not saying that they should do that under Islam, but if they're going to do that, basically you create Dominion by getting everybody under a unique collective awareness. From there, you get everybody to agree to the new rules and basic guidance that you're going to have. And then you create basically a treaty from that, and then you submit that treaty to the UN.
So if you, let's say you live in a road, a cul-de-sac or something like that, and everybody in that street decides, do you know what, we're going to call this Happy Town.
You're gonna
and
have to have
everybody's
a
in
lot of
agreement.
numbers. You have to have a
Community.
lot of numbers. You need a lot of numbers.
Gated community.
You can do it on closed gate community, yeah, definitely. But even then, you have to still declare it and build it under treaty, which means
Yes.
the government surrenders it to you.
Right. Oh, okay.
And
So
that's
you
why you
need
need
more than one road. I mean, more than one road wouldn't make a town, would it? As such,
no, no.
although some villages, are just they
15
are one
minutes.
road villages, aren't
Yeah,
they?
but
15-minute
once again,
cities.
if you've got everybody in that village to agree,
Yes,
and
that's
then
what I'm saying.
you put them
Yeah.
under, then they had a unique collective awareness that you're
Yeah.
sworn off under.
Yeah.
Then you can actually, like I said, create a treaty, and treaty
Right.
just means that somebody has to surrender that to you. That's all treaty means.
Could you say? Let me put this question to you, because I think a lot of people are in this sort of rose tinted glasses, let's make a new world type thing, which I think we need. If you bought a large area of land, say a couple of 100 acres of land, and you bought it, you quickly whacked up some houses, didn't tell the council, you just whacked them up anyway, put people in who wanted to be in that community, and they all said, do you know what? We want our own village. We want to call this whatever village. Nice
Biggleswade.
little Biggleswick.
Sorry.
Biggleswade is already a village. And could they then go and get everyone to swear the oath, do all of that before the council come in and go, oh, what are you doing here? And create their own dominion and register and do the oath and put it to the UN and say, this is ours. Here's our flag. Here's our currency. Bog off out of here.
Well, yeah, it's not that can't be done. It's like, because I know that Michael Obanisian's done this with the UCT, and it's like each person have got a separate jurisdiction depending on where they are. So they're not even in a group or in one place. They're all scattered.
Right.
But they still have a dominion under that collective awareness. This is what I'm
Right.
saying. All you
But
need is that unique collective awareness that you can all agree to. That's what it comes down to.
Oh, that's really interesting, because I know that there's so many of these sort of groups out there who are looking to buy land and do stuff, but the problem is, they've got to think, oh, we can't build on the land because we need the council's permission. But if they made a plan and they just said, right, this is what we're going to do in the next 6 months, the 100 or so people of us, we're going to build this village, we've bought the land, we're just going to go in, knock it all up, do our thing, do the oath, everything else, and so that when people come knocking on the door going, excuse me, you can't, sorry, this is a dominion, can you get off our property, thank you very much.
Well, that comes down to also how basically once you've got the boundaries of that dominion, is actually putting signs up to say, if you enter here, this is what it's like. Going to a state in America, you go to a different state and they have signs up saying there's certain laws that you've got to follow here.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I say, they don't have them all up there, but they have the ones that are most fundamental to that state.
Yes.
So like I say, if you haven't read them, basically you just come in, like I say, you can then go, sorry, you're going to have to leave, because basically you're not actually sticking to what we've actually said. And it's just like I said, putting a note on your front door saying that there's a denial of the implied right of access. It's exactly the same thing. You're creating a domain, essentially.
It's all to do with the privacy element. If you think about the London clubs who didn't close during COVID, these are private clubs. They're private members associations, and you do have to have the privacy element of it. So as Gary says, get the signs up, and they have to adhere to the privacy laws. But the other thing is, when you get a collective together, when you get a group of people together, governance is a nightmare. You've got to have a really strong treaty in place. You've got to have a constitution that everybody signs up to, and you've got to have, and then you're coming into contract as well. But then when it comes to the contract, you then got to put in a jurisdiction, so you can go for your ADR, your alternative dispute mechanism. And if that fails, you're going to end up with the legal again.
Exactly.
So it's almost like you've gone full circle. But it's just because when people get together, they're very complex individuals, and egos
Very
get involved.
challenging. Egos, good old ego.
Not if you drug them all.
That's an idea. That's
If you
happened,
just
isn't
turn them into drones
That's happened.
Well,
and fly over them and spray them with stuff.
Hasn't our government already tried that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
We can live in
that was
50
what I was getting at.
Yeah, 50
That was
minutes.
the village. Was it the village? It was called back in the 60s.
Oh, there you go.
That
I'm not a
show.
number. No,
I'm not
that was
a number.
prisoner. I'm a
Prisoner.
Oh,
prisoner.
the prisoner.
I am
There
a
you
free
go.
man with
Yeah.
I'm a free man.
But can
Have
I
we got
just
another
say-
question? Yeah, sorry.
Well, yeah, there is something called Ubuntu, one small town. I don't know if you're all aware of that. So Michael Tellinger.
Michael Tellinger, I've had him on the show.
You have had him on the show. So
Yeah.
he's been trying to do this years ago. I think he was out there trying to do it a little bit prematurely, but now with what's happened, I know it's got movement. It's just bringing people together again, isn't it, under the Ubuntu movement. So things are happening. And there is like an organisation with that as well. It's not just random communities popping up here, there and everywhere. Cool.
Another question?
Yeah, go on.
We have half an hour left, ladies and gentlemen, so get your questions in double quick time.
I have got one.
Yep.
So, going back to property and trust, can a house with a second charge attached to it be put in a trust? Love the show, by the way, she says.
No,
Thank
that's
you,
very
Steve.
kind.
Or it's a he.
It's
Or
a
it might,
he.
It might be Steve.
Yeah.
Stevie.
Absolutely. Just because there's a charge against a legal title doesn't mean that you can't do anything with the beneficial title of it. And if you think about it, even in trust property, trustees can have the right to borrow against trust property as well. So the number of charges doesn't matter. What you're actually protecting is the right of use. And the legal title being encumbered doesn't affect that. But what you will have is that if those charges, because they've come before the point of time in when the trust was created, then they'll have a greater interest in that property, in the fiat value of that property that they're going to try and recover.
I don't know if you've got another question,
No,
but
I'm just
related
counting
to
one.
that, Trina, as you're there, we had Peter Wilson.
Oh, yes.
I interviewed him we've had him on this panel, but I also did a show with him about trusts, and he was saying that you can spend a fortune on trusts, or you can do it, some simple trusts for free, but by basically expressing it within, and you don't have to tell anybody. It's only when people want to sort of challenge it that you can sort of go, no, we've got this trust, now bog off. Could you just very briefly, I know it's difficult, briefly, but could you just give us a vague idea of the most simplest trust that you could set up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to give people an idea.
Yes. So it's a contract. Ultimately, it's a contract, except instead of two parties, you've got three parties involved in it. And in order for it to be recognised as a trust, which knocks it up into equity law, you've got to have those offices clearly defined. And so you need to have the settlers stated, and they're the ones who currently have all rights, title and interest in the property, and they're the ones who are creating the settlement. They're settling the property into the trust. And then you've got the people who are going to be holding the legal title. They're the trustees, and they're the ones who are going to be administering the trust, and they need to be enforcing it. But one thing that I do find with people who have bought private trusts from other people is that you've got to make sure that that trust is properly constituted. If the legal titles aren't in the names of the trustees, it will collapse because it's not constituted. And then you've also got to have your certainty of beneficiaries. So you've got to satisfy the beneficiary principle. It doesn't have to be named individuals. It could be a class of beneficiaries, but they have to be able to be identified by the trustees. So you set that contract up, you have the res, which is the trust property, within it. You can't set up a trust without property. And then as long as you satisfy those requirements, you've got a trust, and you can create a trust yourself. I'm actually bound. I can't create a lifetime trust because I'm signed up to a code of conduct with a professional accreditation, but I can help others who want to set up their own trusts as well. And it is a very simple thing that you can do, and everyone should do it.
So one thing I would add with that as well about equity, that when it comes to the law, equity stands as is put there to actually deal with complaint. So if you're dealing with equity on the actual contract itself, when it comes to basically setting up that trust, you're already dealing with a future conflict. So basically, because your equity is here, then you've got common law, then you've got legislation, then you've got statute. So equity it stands above everything. So once you've done a trust in title, basically under equity, you're already dealing with all future complaints.
And can one of you define equity? What does it mean? Does it mean being equal, or
no? It just means the conscience of the person. Essentially, if you want to actually bring it down to its, ultimate basically principle, it just means the conscience of the person. So the intent, the conscience, the consciousness of that person.
As Karen mentioned earlier, it's the intent. I talk about this on the first session of the course. If you look at where it came from historically, when the king was trying to unite all of the shires, and he was finding laws that were common to all of the shires, and that's where common law stemmed from. They started to write them down, but they were very black and white, and they didn't fit all situations. And you had people who were breaking laws without intending to. And so they were falling on the king's mercy. They were petitioning the king, and the king couldn't deal with all of that. So he handed these cases down to his chancellor. And the chancellor at the time was the spiritual guide. He was the one who made sure the king's soul didn't go to hell. So, he was dealing with these cases. He would look at the grey parts in between. What was the conscience that was brought into this matter? Where did this person really intend to break this law? And that's where it came in. So they don't have acts, statutes, codes, and regulations within equity. They do have, I forgot, maxims. They do have maxims, which is like a guidance to make sure that it kind of follows the same sort of principles. But it was with the Judica Act, 1873, and then with the Senior Courts Act, where it was enshrined that equity would stand above the common law when it comes to matters of the same.
Especially of dispute. Especially of dispute, because it comes down to absolutely. In the maxim of mens rea, because it's actually looking at mens rea. Did that person have a vicious intent? So it comes down to consciousness again. Does that person have a vicious intent?
But it's also worth noting that equity is only applicable in England and Wales. Scotland doesn't have a system of equity. They have a similar kind of system with they have like a circle, I think it's called. I can't remember what it's called now, but they do have a similar system, but it's not actually called equity in the same way that we understand it. Same with a lot of other countries as well. So we're actually quite blessed to have that system.
The one thing I would add as well about maxims of law, that in a maxim, the reason that there are maxims of law, because they're seen as objectively true. So basically, they cannot be argued with because they're universally accepted as being true.
Do they trump legislation?
Well, a maxim does, because the maxim is, like I say, you cannot argue with a maxim. There is nobody in law that will argue with the maxim. This is why you don't argue law. And this is why nobody will argue law, because the maxim is the law. And because it's seen as objectively true and universally accepted as being objective, it cannot be argued with. This is why I use maxims all the time.
But it's also...
As soon as you put a maximum in
the place where it sits within the court system as well. If you go to a magistrate's, a crown court, family court, and that's where all the statute sits. But then if you go to appeal and it gets knocked up into chancery, so you'll go to the King's Bench or you'll go to the Chancery Court. And that is then where equity comes in, because equity isn't a default. It has to be invited. So you have to go to appeal in order to escalate those courts.
So can you, I mean, if you're at the magistrate's court, can you use the maxims, or will they just go, well, you're in the wrong court for that?
Well, no,
Absolutely.
basically, no, you can still use them, but like I say, it's will they accept them? And if they don't accept them, then you could say, I want to have an appeal because you're not accepting the maximum of law that I'm putting forward because this is an administrative court. So you're not
Right.
going to accept that. So basically, I'm not going to accept that there's a case to be had in this courtroom. I'm going to escalate this to a higher court.
But you should
And-
always go into every court case preparing for appeal. Always, every single court case you go into, what you're actually doing is setting your case for the appeal. So you're gathering the evidence. You've got to put on record everything you can put on record, ready to go to the appeal. So you don't just go to court and think, oh, I'm hoping it gets sorted here. You go to court and you think, right, now I'm building up for the next fight.
Oh, see, that's a really interesting. That is really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, well, this is what we said before about picking the
Yeah.
battle. If you're going to go into
Yeah.
battle, you make sure you're actually armored before you go in, and you
Yeah,
and you
but-
know where the battle's going to.
Yeah.
Right,
Very
but yeah, no,
interesting.
it's interesting that you do that for appeal.
Yeah, wow.
And when you say put it on the record, isn't it not true, or correct me if I'm wrong, that at the magistrate's court it's not on the record?
It depends which magistrate you're going to, because it's like if it's council tax, then no, it's not on the public record at all.
Shouldn't it be?
It should be. It should
And
be.
can you demand that it is?
Well,
I
if
mean,
you
if you're
do,
in there,
well,
you
I've been-
say,
I've
"I
been-
want this on the public record."
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
you can actually ask them if this is a basically court of record, and then if they say yes, well, they say, can I actually for and on the record, can I actually have the transcript of the record basically from this court hearing, so I can see that it's been put on the record. So you just
Yeah.
ask for it.
You
The
could
clerk
always
has
take
to
a
give you
court
it if you
recorder
actually-
with you. You could always take a court recorder with you as well. You know, there's nothing to stop you creating a transcript of the process.
Of what happened.
Yeah.
It's essentially.
But is that will they accept that?
Yeah, they can you can take your own stenographer with you to actually take
Yeah.
minutes take minutes
And
because
then you
See, most people
That's
don't
right.
know that.
You
I
think-
wouldn't have
you
said
think
most people
so.
know that
No.
because you assume that all the offices of the court are there
Yeah,
on,
proper.
you know, and then there's
oh yeah.
then
Don't-
there's the prosecute. Don't
Yeah.
assume
Gary says,
anything.
you can't assume anything. You know, you've got to arm yourself up before you go into this. You're going into
Yes.
battle. You know, and
No, I
don't
appreciate that,
rely-
but it's a
don't
but
rely
like
on anyone else, because I think that's what it is. We trust
Yes.
them. We've been taught
Yes.
to trust them. We've been programmed to trust them. But this is the thing: don't.
No,
You
no,
have
and-
to do it all yourself.
No, and well, you see, that's where this is so valuable, because I think now I may be wrong, but I think a lot of people assume that all those services are done and they have it their way, and you just turn up and you go,
Yeah.
oh yeah, but it was like this, and then that happened, and then they, you know, that everybody else is going, oh, you poor sod.
Well, it's-
Yeah, no worries about that.
Well,
What do you
well-
think, Judge? Oh well, I think we should take
Well,
him
we'll put it-
down,
we'll
down, have his head
Off with
chopped
his
off,
head,
to the
off with his
lions
head.
with him.
Well, I
And
would put it
so-
down to this, Richard. Basically, people think it's pro gratis when they should be thinking qui bono.
And then somebody says, could you just translate that, please?
Well, pro gratis means it's free of charge,
Yes.
and qui bono means who benefits,
Right. Okay.
and that's what
Did
you
you
should.
not know
So,
that, Richard?
so basically,
I don't know nothing.
in pro gratis, everybody thinks it's pro gratis when they go into a courtroom. It's like
Yeah.
no, it's qui bono because you follow the money. Who benefits?
And
benefits?
are all courts, sorry, not the court, room, but the people in it, are they all members of the private bar guild? And is that not a big club in which it's all slewed against you anyway?
Magistrates, not so much. They're actually members, but they're not fully gilded. But then basically your actual district judges, visiting justices, and Crown Court justices are usually part of the bar.
And
But
that is-
magistrates, not always.
and the bar is basically again because it's a corporation. I mean, they're
Well,
all
it's-
in it
it's
for money.
British accreditation register. That's all it means.
What bar?
That just means
Yeah.
British accreditation register. That's
Yeah.
literally all it means. No, but
Oh,
there's
it's-
nothing more than that. And it's just comes
Right.
down to the accreditation that you get. Then you've got to go to the bar, basically the British accreditation basically panel, to actually show that you've actually got the competence and the deviling to become a lawyer.
The deviling, that's a
Yes,
new one. The
The devil,
deviling.
if you want to read anything about solicitor in this country,
Mm.
read basically the Devil's Handbook.
Okay.
And it's
Is
called
that-
But don't
deviling.
forget, you've also got
It's literally called deviling.
The Devil's Handbook.
Yeah, the
Is
Devil's
that
Handbook.
is that a novel?
No, it's an actual. It's the Devil's Handbook is the underpinning for every solicitor and lawyer training,
Blimey.
and it's called deviling.
Wow,
Where
that's
do
a
you
new
think?
word. That's
Where do you think they get the devil's advocate from? The film Devil's Advocate?
yeah, the
Because
devil's advocate.
because you got to remember that Al Pacino, the character in that, John Milton, was teaching him deviling, how to actually use the court system and the words used, so you could devil, so you could actually earn literally loads of money from it.
So it's a verb. It's a doing word.
It's what they call the monetization of sin, and you've got to remember all sins belong to the devil. So the
Gary,
monetization of
you
sin.
you don't stop, do you? You have all this somewhere.
Amazing. You see, this is
I know.
so. This is pro bono. Then you're getting all this knowledge, ladies and
No,
gentlemen, for
gratis.
absolute.
Pro
Sorry,
gratis.
pro gratis. No,
Pro
that's not.
Qui
bono.
bono,
Pre-
qui bono,
pre-
just
Philly.
doing two
But
benefits.
wasn't Bono with something to do with the music
he's
industry?
not a
Well,
good
qui-
we don't
qui-
know.
He was pro, wasn't he?
Also, qui bono just means two
Oh,
benefits.
queer Bono. That's
Well,
even worse, I
he's a
think.
naughty bono. I know
It's
that.
CUI, qui bono.
Qui bono.
Oh, qui Bono.
Italian, huh?
It's Italian.
Italian.
It's nice.
All it means is who benefits, essentially. That's all
Who
it
benefits?
Do
Yes.
you have to pay a yearly fee to keep the trust up? Just like bringing it back down from deviling here?
Yes. To keep the trust going, do you
Yeah,
need to
do you need
pay?
to pay a yearly
Is
fee?
it a fee,
Like a
or once you've set
subscription?
it up, is it for life?
No, once
Great.
you've set it up, it depends what you've put in the contract. So you're going to have these provisions within the trust itself. And the regulation is that a trust will go for 125 years, or you can opt in being plus 21 years, which means the lives of the youngest beneficiary of the trust plus 21 years after their death. So it's up to you how long you want to keep it going for. Now, if you register the trust with the TRS and your estate is worth over £325,000 per settler, then there is an entry fee to pay to HMRC, and then a 10-year anniversary fee of 6% on anything over the nil rate band. So it's different if you put it in the public and have it registered and stuff. But if you're just doing it yourself, then no, there's nothing to pay. There's no one to pay. It's a private contract that you've set up.
unless they meet the terms and conditions. That's the only time you're going to pay them out.
Well,
if they meet the terms and conditions. If they don't meet the terms and conditions, then sorry, you don't get it.
Okay, we've only got 15 minutes. I want to ask one more question, then we're going to give you guys a
Can
chance
I just
to...
say something?
No. Of course you can.
Mark Devlin. We were talking about Devlin, so somebody's come along because Mark was on your show. He was at Uprise the other week.
Yes,
and
he was.
he was here. You were interviewing him the other day, and they're talking about Mark Devlin because of the new verb that we've just learned today. Gary's taught us about Devlin, and now they brought Mark Devlin into it, who tells a lot of truth.
Yeah.
That was my comment.
Thanks.
Be quiet.
That was very good. My final question was a question that came in by email, and I meant to ask it much earlier in, and the poor lady's had to watch for 2 hours to get to her question, and she emailed, and I said I'd answer it in the thing. And this is about self-assessment. Can she or he, I can't remember now, can they haven't filled in their HMRC self-assessment form. What is likely to happen, and how do they get out of not paying it without necessarily doing the Chris Coverdale thing, which I would probably advise. Well, I would not advising anything.
What I would say straight away, basically, to that person, if they go on YouTube right now and actually put Michael Obanisian, Success with the Taxman, watch that video and you'll have all the information you will ever need to do it.
There you go. Success with the Taxman.
Yeah, Michael Obanisian, basically. Yeah, obviously, his site's called the Benisian on YouTube. But if you actually just put Success with the Taxman, and like I say, you just watch that video, it will take you through it from beginning to end and how he basically started it and how he actually got a return from the taxman because they closed his account and give him 130 odd quid.
Blimey.
So they actually give him money in the end.
I can smell casserole. Can you smell casserole? It's rather nice. Listen, we've only got a few more minutes left. So we always do this at the end of our Clever Clogs to promote anything that they wish to promote. So if they've got a little bit of deviling going on the side, they can do a bit of that. So Trina, as you are our newbie on the Clever Clog show, what kind of stuff do you do, and how can we promote your stuff in case people want to get involved?
Well, if you want to get in contact, you contact us on our website, which is privatetrusts.direct. And you can email inquiries at privatetrusts.direct. There's an S on the end of trust there. So we've got the wills, we've got the will trust, we do lasting power of attorney, we do will storage, But most importantly, I've got this course, which is a 10-week course. It's on a Wednesday at 7. And with that course, you get all the templates and all the admin documents and everything you need to create, administer, and force your own private trust.
And when you say you do a course and it's like a certain, do you have to come in at the beginning of the course and run through, or can you just join halfway through?
Yeah, you can join halfway through. So we're currently 6 weeks into the latest run. I run it a few times a year. We just do this one for donation, and it just meet costs really. Now, once you donated, you can come on every time. It's recorded. There's quizzes, there's assignments, and if you do the assignments, you will have written your own private trust by the time you get to week 6.
I'm just going to interrupt there briefly, because somebody there has, Zen Johnson just says, they always want money. And it really bugs me when I guess, that person is likely to go into a supermarket or a place of food. And it's funny, they won't, unless they go to, what are those places that dish out food for the poor?
Food bank.
A food bank.
Food bank.
I imagine that mostly that, or when they go to work, that I imagine they want money.
Yeah.
So it's an irritating comment, because because people are trying to help people in the freedom movement, people assume that you're always going to do free. But like everybody, people have bills to pay. They don't just go, oh, do you know, I'm not going to pay anything.
Well, I mean, what you,
I know. I do get annoyed.
Richard, there's an energy exchange. Okay, so you're either going to put your time and energy in buying the books and learning it yourself, or you're going to do a course. Now, with the course, you can take a zero off of what it would cost you to buy a trust from a solicitor. Okay, so it's a lot cheaper, and it's something that I give to the private realm, to the truth movement, whatever we want to call ourselves, or the belief movement, because there is a way of protecting your assets. And if all of these people are doing these fights, they need to have a backup.
No, and I'm totally with.
What I would say though, basically, is I know what that person's getting at. I'm not saying agreeing with him, but I understand where he's coming from, because he's saying that if you're charging for these things and people can't afford to actually do them, basically you're creating a pale wall to freedom. That's what he's saying. So basically, if you're creating a pale wall to freedom, that's what it feels like to that, because if they can't afford it, then they don't get access to that secret. So basically that secret is now kept a secret from them because they can't afford to pay. So they see it as a pale wall to freedom. So I do understand where that actual question comes from, because I felt like that myself.
We also do provide a lot of free course access as well. So if somebody comes to us and they says, look, we're really struggling, can I just give you this much, or can I do an energy exchange, or can I come on for free? Then we will do that as well. We do try to make it as accessible as possible.
It's an honour system, isn't it? That's what that comes down to. It's the honour system itself. This is why you just ask for donations, because the simple fact
is... Well,
I
was going to say, you did say it was for donations, so people, it's not like there's... there's no obligation. A donation of over £100 would be very nice. Well, of course, it would be lovely.
But I still understand where that person's coming from, because I've been there myself with some courses that I wanted to go on. It was just like, what, you're charging £800 for that? I was like, well, I really need that course, but I can't find any £100. So do you just put a pale wall to that freedom for me? Because I've got to now try and find all of that information myself.
But yes. But that's life, isn't it?
Oh yeah, well,
that is life. I mean, we do have to get. Yes, I know. I do understand where he's coming from, and I get that. And it's not a personal attack, Zen, but it's just I get loads of emails from people, especially when I've had people on the show and they go, "Oh, they're always promoting a book, or they're always running a course, and nobody gives it for free," and it does get on your nerves a little bit, because they wouldn't expect to go to work or to write a book or to do a course and not be paid themselves.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's unfortunate that there's been too many grifters that have found a niche in the actual freedom movement and then monetized it. That's what it's.
Well, that is
true too.
You know what I mean? So I can see, as I say, I can see where they're coming from. But
it's the greed, isn't it? That's the whole problem with the world.
And that's what we're trying to get away from.
Yeah, we're trying to get away from the greed. Because look, how many yachts, how many islands can you own with these billionaires? So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
Quite a few, actually.
As long as
7, one for each day of the week.
That's
Come
a good
on.
idea.
Well, as long as you know you're being authentic, though, Karen, and like I say, you're doing the things from the heart, then essentially that person that you're dealing with will see that and actually recompense you anyway.
Yeah.
It's like I found
so
all the work I've
there is
done.
support here, and there is support. People are saying, you know,
There's a lot, yes,
donation base is a good balance.
Snakes and Doggies is very supportive. He says this place is the grifters' capital of the universe. Yes, thanks very much, Snakes and whatever your dog is.
Slimy
Yes.
things.
So Trina, anyway, privatetrusts.direct. Gary, did you want to promote anything that you're up to?
Well, the only thing basically that I've been up to essentially, like I say, is I've been doing a lot of stuff privately with a lot of people, and I know Karen's been filtering people through to me as well that needed help. So I've actually, you know, kind of relied on Karen on that side for anybody that wants to get in touch with her that I could help. Then she'll pass them on to me anyway, and I'll just deal with them in a private capacity. But on the roadshow, the one basically it's going to be happening at Withensea. I was just waiting for the confirmation from the booking sheet. So I know the 21st of July, the roadshow I'll be on. Basically, it's just going to be confirmed, and like I said, that's going to be done for Karen as well. So Karen will announce all of that anyway.
Brilliant. Yeah.
I have. I'm holding it in my sticky fingers. So we went through these earlier, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah.
But what we'll do is we'll
put them on
we'll put them on in the description of this video. If you send me the text, I can just copy it in, and then you can have a look.
Yeah, say sample.
Are we doing another? I haven't checked my diary actually. Are we doing another show next week? I
Yeah.
can't remember if we doing another one.
I think we are. We are. Is that the 16th? Yes, we are. Allegedly, David Edelman. Jill's coming back. Callie Spell. And also David, who wasn't circumcised. His name wasn't circumcised. I don't know about his other bits. But David, who was on the other day. Sorry, will I get you sacked? I'm sorry.
Oh, the obstrucalist. Oh, you mean obstrucalist?
Yes.
The obstrucalist.
That's the one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic word.
Yeah.
It would be lovely to have him back.
goodness
And
me.
finally, then, all I've got to say is tomorrow at Cricklade Hall at 7 o'clock, a certain bald bloke with glasses will be parading around on stage if you want to come along. And if you've watched this after Friday, it's already done, so tough.
Which Friday?
Oh, that's
the 10th of May.
Yeah, 10th of May, tomorrow.
Yeah, 2024.
Near Swindon. So if you're anywhere down there, and by the way, Dora's Dairy is available for raw milk, which is lovely.
Dora's
we will
Dairy.
be milking the cows
Oh, lovely.
on the Saturday.
Nice, not
Don't
pasteurised.
suggest you come and watch that, though.
No, well, I would. It'd be really good fun.
Yeah, in our
Squirt it
wellies.
everywhere.
So there we go. That is about it, really. There is a few minutes left if anybody wants to add anything to it before we tinkle off.
Can I add something?
Of course not.
Thank you. On one of your videos, you've encouraged people to set up their own little groups, haven't you? Their own YouTube channels.
Oh, yes.
And I think that's really important. I mean, I've set one up. You were my first guest called Wise Women Weekdays. And and it was a bunch of women, and we were just chatting with other people. Gary's come on it before. We had a good old chat about fiduciary law.
Pigeons.
Yes, it was very good. And I've had some really good guests, but I think it's so important for as many people as possible to do this because we do want to share. We want to get the information out there. So I'm just really endorsing what you're saying and advertising my channel, Wise Women Weekdays, on YouTube.
Wise Women Weekdays.
And you don't have to be a woman. You don't have to be wise, and you do not have to be a
weekday.
That's right.
So yes, you can check that out any time you like, which should be quite fun. Yes, no, and I think it's absolutely essential that people, if you feel you've got something to say, get out there, because what we're seeing people voicing their opinions and then being closed down.
Yeah.
And some of the larger channels, it's all very well for them because they're doing their thing. But even if you've got 10 people watching you, this is my thing. If you've got 100,000 people with 10 people watching, unless they're the same 10, well, it wouldn't be the same 10 but 100. You know what I'm saying? You're spreading the message out, whatever it is that you believe. Whether that Richard Vobes is a nutcase and don't watch him. Whatever it is.
Richard is what they call the 6 degrees of separation, essentially.
There you go. Yeah.
So nice. For every 5 people that you tell, they tell 2 more people. That's another 20. That's another 10 people. Then 10 people tell 2 more people. That's 40 people, and it carries on out. So it's what they call degrees of separation. Yeah.
I'm going to use that in my talk tomorrow.
Also, yeah, remember it. Also, this has come to me 3 or 4 times. You know about synchronicity. So
Yes.
from the Giles said it at the Uprise and Shine, and the lady I was talking to on my Wise Women Weekday said it. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them. That's Matthew 18:20 from the Bible. Did you know that one, Gary?
Say that again. Sorry.
You weren't listening, were you? For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them.
Yeah, the right to assembly. That's where that comes from.
Oh,
You know, the
there you
right
go.
to assembly, because if you've got more than 4 people, you can knock on wood and actually call the right to assembly.
And make a song.
And
Knock on wood.
but essentially, but that's what that is. That's where that actual basically right comes from.
Well, it's great, but it's about a numbers thing, isn't it?
Yes.
It's
But
about numbers.
didn't the government say that people gathering in more than 2 have suddenly become a crowd, and then that
Yes,
you're not
break-
allowed to do
yeah,
that legislatively?
Yeah, well,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
well, that came down to also the criminal justice bill about people gathering. So they actually did that many years ago, actually.
So which one can you do? Can you do
Do what
the
we wanna do.
the
Sorry.
Bible one or the
Well, no, because if you're actually doing the right to assembly, you have to have, like I say, the people to agree with you, and then you go and knock on whatever you're stood next to actually bring it to order, just like you would in a courtroom. You've got to knock to do it. So
knock on wood?
Knock
Yeah, well,
on-
it's like-
Is
the
that
song
where that
Amy-
comes from?
Yeah, Amy
well,
Winehouse.
well, if you
no,
put it
Amy
this
something
way,
else.
well, it is a real strange ritual, right? Basically, that acne carriages.
It's not satanic, is
No,
it?
no. It's just it was an unusual ritual that they had in Hackney carriages, and they can still do this today without actually being arrested for indecent exposure. So basically, a taxi driver used to be able to, when there was actually had Hackney carriages, put
Yeah.
their left hand on the carriage wheel and piss up it piss up it. If they took their hand off that actual carriage, they could be arrested for indecent exposure. But if they keep their hand on it, then no, they can't be. As long as
And
they're
the
doing
other
it on
hand,
back wheel.
presumably, is hanging on to
Yeah, and obviously they have to direct it onto the back wheel.
their little Boris Johnson.
But that's what I'm saying. But
Bojo.
but Hackney carriages had that strange ritual where they could, as long as they had their hand on it,
Yeah.
they could actually pee up the back wheel, but fine, without actually being seen as indecently exposing themselves.
And
it's
on
a-
that note,
And it's the
on
same
that-
with the right to assembly. Once you've got 4 people and you knock on that wood,
Yes.
you're following the actual ritual.
Right.
Love it.
And it's so important. Trina, before we go, have you enjoyed your encounter on this show? I've seen you laughing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I bet Gary's great at parties.
I very rarely go out.
But he was a celebrity DJ.
He was the celebrity.
Yeah.
There
Yes,
we go.
I was at one
Yeah.
point in my life. Yes, on the radio and obviously around the country. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been
Ladies and
enlightening
gentlemen.
for me too.
We have come to the end of another show. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hit this Thursday night. Don't forget you can watch it all over again on YouTube. Plus our previous 8 shows. This was show 9.
No.
So next week will be show 10, which will be
No.
great stuff. Thank you so much for watching. Big thanks to Julia, who has been here. She's disappeared now.
Cooking.
A wonderful thanks to our clever clogs, the panel, to Gary and Trina, and of course to Karen, who's put it all together, and to you, the lovely audience who've come along and typed furiously, and we've tried to sort of keep up and read all your wonderful questions. The lovely Julia is just coming in to say hello. There she is, look. She's sorting out the casserole, which is the after-show party. Anyway, that's it from us. Thanks so much for watching. Till now, look at them, they're laughing away. Giggling. Hang on a minute, let's just show you.
Giggling clever clogs.
There we go. Look, there's the
Oh, God.
gallery view. Goodness sake. Right, till next time. Take care and...
See you.